Welcome, folks, to the Knights of the Wrong Table. I'm John,
And I am Randall.
and we have our special guest today, Keya. Keya, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And Keya comes to us as a guest, very relevant with the current events surrounding the United States and foreign interventions abroad. Keya, did you want to kind of give a little backstory on yourself there?
Yeah, sure, definitely. My name is Keya Moradi. I am a U.S. born American citizen. And really, before we sort of dive into things, I just wanted to make it clear that everything I mention here today regarding this topic or any relevant topic is not representative of the U.S. government or any affiliates of it or any entity related to it. It's not representative of the Department of Defense, not representative of the U.S. Army. It's just my personal opinions. So I just want to make sure make it clear I'm not speaking on behalf of any sort of political or affiliation or government entity that has to do with the United States.
Very good.
My name is Keya Moradi, and I approve this message.
Yeah, we're all just a bunch of guys on a podcast chatting and talking. None of us have any actual, affiliation for it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Important to get that out of the way.
Yep. We are not being paid for these posts by any government either. So.
Yeah, just a normal U.S. citizens having a conversation using freedom of speech.
So you are a 100% American born, and you're also Texan as well, right? From Texas?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Houston. When I was around 6 years old, we had sort of an unfortunate tragedy in our family. My mother was a victim of a very sad situation, and so she was very sort of traumatized by this, and just needed. Yeah, at the time they told I was told my brother and I were told we wanted you to learn Iranian culture. By the way, I use Iranian and Persian interchangeably, but really they mean the same thing. And so we wanted you to learn the language and everything like that. So we moved to Iran. But really, when I learned later as a teenager, they explained to me why this whole thing happened and everything like that. So when I was 6, I moved to Iran. So from first grade all the way to second grade in high school, and then in Iran, the current regime, they have this rule where if you're 17, you can't leave the country um, until you fulfill mandatory military duty.
Okay, they have military
And the
conscription over
military
there.
and the current regime in Iran is very terrible. There's rampant sexual assault, stories of just really terrible living conditions and everything like that because they don't really respect the military. They look upon them as tools. And so I left the country when I was 16, also because I just saw a better future in the US. Um,
So you were there for
and
10 years. You were there.
for 10 years. So I can
It's a
speak the
long time.
language, I can read and write, I can
Yeah.
give you like context around
Do
things,
you have
especially
two?
from a
Do you have two passports then, Keya, or just the American passport? Or
right. So in Iran, the passport is any country you go to, you have to have if your parents are from that country, depending on the nationality, this is an international situation. But also Iran, from the perspective of the Iranian regime, if one of your parents, either your father or both parents, because they don't care about what the women are, if either your father is Iranian or both of your parents are Iranian, you are forcefully, from their perspective, a citizen of that country.
so,
Now, when I became a U.S. soldier, I had to formally renounce that. Not that it matters from their perspective. From their perspective, you have to have uh, you're an Iranian citizen, and then using that, you can go to whatever country that Iran had a good political relationship with, which is very far and few in between,
right.
right? So places like Cuba, they have a good relationship, or so
Russia,
forth.
other
Uh,
places like this, yeah.
all the questionable places in the world from my perspective. And so then when I came back, I just lived by myself when I was 16, put myself through school, went to University of Houston, got a bioengineering degree, biotechnology degree. It took me a long time to get that degree because my parents were separated. I had to support my mom and my family and everything like that. But it took me almost 8 years to get my degree. But
They
I
were
did
they
get
were
my
all still
degree.
back there during the
Lived in
time.
Houston for some time, and then moved up. They were at the time they were back in Iran, and then At some point, my dad got a divorce, got remarried, came back to the US. My mom unfortunately lost her green card because of some unfortunate family situations, and so she lives there alone right now.
Jeez.
Which is another. Yeah, I'm very worried about her.
Tehran
That's
or
another
in
conversation. But so then she lives in Tehran, yeah, which is the the, the capital state. So Tehran is the capital state, but it's the city that is the capital is also named Tehran.
right.
Ironic.
Oh,
This is
interesting.
the case with a lot of cities and states in Iran. So imagine like Texas had a city called Texas, which is also the capital instead of Austin. It's kind of like that.
Gotcha.
So I understand a lot of the cultural nuances, especially from perspective of a teenager. There's a funny story where like the first year that I went, because I was, singing a national anthem every day in the US growing up and everything like that. So in Iran, they have a day where so for 47 years, they've been chanting death to America, right? Because they see the US as the root of all evil in the world. And they have a day where they burn the American flag. And at the time, when this is first grade, and a lot of the folks there kind of knew that I was born in the U.S. when I came there, so they kind of looked at me as if I'm the personification of the U.S. And they all kind of like while they were burning the flag, like they were like chanting to me, like looking at me, like "Death to America," and I'm like, it's
Jeez.
like these 300-400 kids looking at me saying "Death to America," and I started crying and everything like that. So I went upstairs and I drew an Iranian regime flag, came downstairs, and I torched that shit in front of the whole school.
Oh, wow.
And because I was like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna burn my flag? I'm gonna burn your
That's
flag."
Yeah,
wild.
dude. That's
So our
ballsy for a
This
school
is
middle
like
was
the
school
like,
early.
school.
This is like the
yeah, I mean,
early
I
'90s.
was like, "Well, fuck you guys, right?" And
Man,
please excuse my profanity, but so like it's like 400 kids, and it's like this staircase that leads up to the classes. So I went on top of the stairs and just burned their flag. And you should have been there. It was like chaos. They were all trying to like get to me, and the school principals were trying to hold them back. And so ever since that day, they wouldn't let me go to school on that day. I was banned from from
that's
school and
wild.
everything. I just couldn't fathom like the concept of like a country doing that or people doing that. I just looked at it as, okay, well, I'm here and you guys are my friends, and I'm just going to school. Like I'm just a little kid. Um, but I'm just trying to make a point. Like I'm very familiar with like the ins and outs of like the cultural nuances, if you speak, if you would.
Now, Kia,
And then after that,
is there a
oh, sorry.
no, go you I was gonna ask, is there a reason that your family moved back to Iran during, is this the 90s?
Right. So I don't know if my voice got cut off, but yeah. So we had a family tragedy in our family, and
Yeah, so family
my mom
emergency.
was very traumatized by that experience.
And that's why you
She
guys
was a
moved
victim
back?
of sexual assault. I mean, I'm very open about it.
Okay, gotcha.
In Houston, and so the folks that perpetrated that, they all went to jail. They had to go through this long, prolonged court situation and everything like that. But at the time, what was explained to myself and my brother, which is also born here in the U.S., was like, "Oh yeah, we just wanted you to learn Persian culture." But in reality, later we found out it's like she just couldn't just
Had to get the
the
hell out of Dodge.
process.
Yeah.
Right, right,
No
yeah.
place like home,
So
essentially.
now, do I personally agree with that decision? No, I feel like maybe they could have just moved to Colorado or Miami or who knows somewhere else, But we're kids, and they made the decision that they made, and it is what it is. But
Did they have
I do
did they have more family back there already? They were moving back too, or how
not so much
was
my
your
mom.
direct
Yeah,
family
not so
kind of
much
out of
my
the area?
mom. My dad has a lot of family in Iran. Interesting you mentioned that because so the way my mom's side of the family came to the U.S. is because my grandfather was in the previous regime military. He was a major in that military, and he saved 2 American lives from certain death. And he got a soldier's medal from JFK before he got assassinated.
Oh,
And
Wow.
cool.
at some point, they wanted my grandfather to sort of join the U.S. military, and that kind of like that's how my mom's side of the family came to the U.S. Which is one of the reasons I joined the military because it was like one of his dying wishes to like join the U.S. military at some point.
That's cool.
Yeah, but then at the time, there was some jealousy within his peers, and they kind of jailed him to not do this, and so on and so forth. There's some stories there that I have to go back and dig my family history, but because I've been away for so long,
If
uh,
he got a medal from JFK, that would have been before. That'd been during the Mossadegh regime,
yeah,
right? That'd been before the Shah.
1962. I believe. Well, Mossadegh was, let's see, I
50s.
think it was
because
like 50s and
he
60s.
was killed in 1953, I think, wasn't JFK?
Yeah, yeah. No, so he got no,
Earlier.
JFK, I think it was 60
Oh,
something.
was it 63? 63.
Yeah, so his, it's not like JFK handed him a medal. It was his administration that awarded him the medal.
Yeah,
You can
yeah, I
actually
got you.
look him up in the military archives. His name, I can text you his name, John,
No,
later.
I just got confused
Um,
with the day that JFK died. I had 53. I was like, wait a minute, that was when most of the day was
oh
around.
yeah.
I was
Well, no,
like,
no, yeah, 53 was
63.
yeah.
It was 10 years later. Yeah, you're good.
I think the Mossadegh era was
The
going on with President Truman,
Yeah,
I
in the
believe.
early
At that,
50s.
Yeah, it was 48 through 52.
yeah, yeah. But no, so anyways, that's kinda how my mom's side of the family came to the US, late '70s, and then my dad's side of the family came to the US late '70s, but they came for education. So my dad went to Texas Tech, got an electrical engineering degree, and his brother became a neurosurgeon and all that kind of they're very, like, academic minded and everything like that, which is kind of interesting because in Persian culture, like, you have to be lawyer, doctor, engineer, otherwise, like, there's nothing outside the box that exists in the world. So
Funny.
I actually got into medical school, and I never went to medical school, and because I didn't go to medical school, I was so it was a huge sin, like, I committed, some kinda sin,
Well,
but that's a story for another day.
that's something we have in common, Kia. I went to school for biology and was going down that track, and there's times I feel like my family doesn't let me live that down. We got something in common there.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think you should do what makes you happy in life, and work hard and smart at it, and do what you want to do. I don't think you can be somebody who owns a garbage business, but if you're the best one, you make the most money and you're successful,
There's a
like, you
lot of
can do
money in
anything you
shit and
want.
garbage, man.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I was gonna say we went to college, John and I did, with the guy who owns or is a part of the LeMay Garbage Collection Foundation, and they're like one of the top 15 most rich families in the United
Yeah,
States.
and
Oh, yeah.
I would point to the look at the owner of that business and how is he living? Okay, so you don't have, but I mean that's it. Or you could be a teacher. You could be the best teacher and make so much impact in somebody's lives and shape how they think about the future so they don't become another Hitler or another
Yeah.
a Marx type of
Another
character,
Ayatollah. Yeah.
Stalin or Ayatollah. Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of a general
I was
background
gonna
on me.
I was gonna make a totally appropriate joke there. I was gonna be like, yeah, you could be an admissions specialist for an art school, and then you prevent the next Hitler by just letting him into art school.
I mean, it's this poetry, arts. I really have a big passion for anything, any sort of
Have you
art form.
traveled when you were in Iran? Did you travel a lot around? Did you get to see the countryside? Did you go to like Persepolis
Yeah,
or
I
anything?
love traveling. My grandfather, my dad's dad, always said the best way to get to know somebody and have life experiences is to travel with someone and get to know the world. I love traveling. If I had all the money in the world, one day I would just be either in school or be traveling. Like I'll just be a scholar that's traveling. I
The
just
Rhodes
think there's
Scholar.
tremendous value in getting to connect with people, and I think that as human beings, we have far more things in common somebody in Russia or somebody in who knows where, like, might have be living in those countries, but they're not personified by those countries. They're
Right.
human beings like us. They have needs like us, and we have so much more in common. And I think I have ideas of my own about that, but
No, I
My
think
that's
eyes
that's
just
got
noble.
open.
That's a noble view, obviously. We are all human. So,
yeah.
My eyes got open to that kind of a concept when I was in college and I was traveling with a certain someone to Cuba, and we would go into these bars and have these conversations with bartenders, and I'd be, talking to them about the government here and the government back in the United States, and I was like, so, then they'd be like, well, I served in the military, and I'd come to find out I'm talking with like a tank commander in the war in Angola, and
Ah.
I'm like, dude, you're like you were in it, and he's like, yeah, but just because our governments don't get along doesn't mean we can't. Like, let's have a drink.
Yeah. So you were in the military? I didn't know
No,
that.
not
Uh,
me, but just
oh, I see.
one of the people there, and seeing like how entrenched they were. They weren't just like an average Joe civilian. Like this guy was
Sure.
a tank commander in their military, and he still has that same type of mindset where he's like, just because our
Huh.
governments don't get along doesn't mean we
Right.
can't. Like we can still be friends. And that totally like blew open that kind of mindset of thinking for me when I was down there, and I was like, dude, I can't imagine how like every single person that I came across had that same type of mindset. So
Mhm.
it's a lot more than governments for sure. People, if the more you travel, the more people you meet, the more you see how other people live. It broadens your own perspectives, and it makes you a sharper tool.
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. For
Especially
sure.
here in America, right? I feel like because we are so privileged here compared to elsewhere, right? Like I kind of look at sometimes like my house and living quarters here and wish I had more, just having a little rambler. But abroad there could be a dozen people that live in the house my size, you know. So it puts things in perspective.
Effective.
I remember my trips to Greece too. It was funny because, right, like when you go to a restaurant here in America, it's like they're just trying to get you in and out as quick as they can. I remember like sitting at a coffee shop late night in Greece, and I was like waiting for the waiter to kick us out. They're like, "No, no, no! Like this is yours for the night. Like stay here for hours and talk and chat." And so you get that. It's good. It's good to realize that there are good people. People are people everywhere, and to get different cultures, perspectives, and stuff. So and then I think it is an important thing to note, right? Like America essentially being more of a Christian nation, or having you could say a Christian lens. Um, Kia, how would you say that you describe yourself as far as your religion? Does that have anything to play with your story, or do you consider yourself more secular or
I'm very secular perspective. I think religion. I believe in the separation of church and state. I think the right question. That's actually a really good question. I really love that question so much. So growing up in Iran, they forced you to be Muslim, right? And it's basically if you either do this thing that we want or there's consequences. So like you have to go as a student in elementary school, middle school, high school, they have a prayer room. And if you're not going to pray there, they deduct points from this particular category of grades. And if you don't get a passing score, you don't graduate that year.
interesting?
So it has consequences.
Yeah,
Or it's very ingrained. The ideology is forcefully ingrained within all facets of life, and it has consequences for all sorts of folks if you don't follow that. Then when I came to the US, sleep freedom of religion, you are right. There's a lot of sort of Christian perspective in the US, but I think in action, it's not necessarily so. Like right now, I can go, down. I live in downtown Seattle. I can go. I have freedom of speech. I can say, hey, F this person, F that person from the left and the right, and everybody in between. And they're not going to take me to jail for it and sexually assault me in prison. But that is the case in Iran, places like Iran. And there's factual stories that we could point to. But yes, I mean, when you're sworn in as as a service member or in Congress, they say, okay, one nation under God. Well, the one nation under God, that's in the script, right? But in practice, is that it? I don't necessarily think that's 100% with going with the Christian narrative. Myself, I love to explore. So when I went to even when I was in the military, I got baptized. I wanted to really experience what sort of a part of a Christian perspective. There was a Bible in the barracks. I studied that here and there. I had a meeting with a chaplain to talk about stuff like this. I love learning and learning somebody's perspective. I think it's dangerous when religion comes in and wants to 100% dictate what everyday life looks like. I have a problem with that, right? So, like,
Yeah,
if I have
absolutely.
a neighbor that's Christian, and this is the case in America, thankfully, and that neighbor is Christian and he comes and talks about his Christian perspective, okay, I learned something from him. That's one thing. But if he puts a gun to my head and says, well, because I'm Christian, you have to be Christian. If you're not going to be Christian, then I'm going to shoot you in the head. I'm going to change your last name, bury your body what I want, sexually assault you and your family, and kill everybody. That yes, I have a problem with that, and that
right.
is the case in Iran. That is 100% the case in Iran, and I've lived that life, and I can tell you how scary that is.
Yeah,
As a matter of fact, if you're somebody that's Christian and you're trying to get more followers that are Christian, you're not going to get them to follow you that way. You're going to get them to follow you through your reasoning and being kind or whatever the case
Yeah, it's
may be.
pretty antithetical to the
So
Christian beliefs.
yeah, I have a big problem with forced religion. I have a big problem with violence. Exacting violence and consequences that are violent because
I
somebody doesn't want to believe in the same thing you
I
have.
got I gotta say, if you have a big problem with forced religion, Christianity is probably not the religion for you.
yeah.
Well, I think
From a
there's a
historical
spectrum.
perspective, yes. I mean,
Yeah, from a
Yeah, I mean,
historical perspective.
maybe not
yeah,
right
I think
now.
there's a spectrum for everything, right? Like going back to that neighbor, I think there's like the far right, the middle, the left, the far left, right? If you go far left, you end up with somebody like Marxists. If you go far right, you end up with Hitler, right? There's a spectrum, and I think there can be political discourse and there can be a middle. I try to be in the middle, and I try to ask the question, you know, it's interesting you mentioned that. Like, I try to ask a question, like, as being an American, like, what's good for Americans? But unfortunately, when in this era that we live in, the first question people ask is, "Are you red or blue?" And if you're red, everything you say is bullshit
Yeah,
and
you're gonna
fuck
go
you.
one
If
of
you're
that.
right, if you're not red and you're blue, everything you say is bullshit and fuck you. But please excuse my profanity. I
It's
don't know
all
if you're
good.
No, you're
so.
good.
Yeah.
Go nuts,
Uh,
man. Go
what
nuts.
I think should be asked is, "Hey, what's good for Americans?" Okay, Americans need to get good education. They need to have good healthcare. They need to be able to participate in the political system. I think we should take money out of politics. You know
And
what would be interesting
Citizens
is, like, on
United,
top of
yes.
each politician's head, imagine if there's a billboard on top of each politician's head, and it showed all the companies that
They're
invested in them.
they're top donors. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have to wear a
Just
Yeah,
billboard
like
on their chain on their
NASCAR.
neck.
and do
That's like
you
that'd be great.
and
Yeah,
and
that'd
do
be
you
great.
really think, like, if I'm Coca-Cola and I come to you as a politician, I say, "Hey, John, you know what? I'm gonna give you $1,000,000, and just go ahead and keep it. I'm gonna walk away." No, 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 of course not. There's gonna be expectations for a
Yeah.
million
Quid
dollars.
pro quo. Yeah, if you give
Okay?
someone a $40 billion or $40 million jet plane, they're gonna be getting something out of it.
They're gonna be, well, do you think they're stupid? Do you think, like, no. And by the way, each company is driven by profit, right? So, like news media, which is another conversation,
Just Kia,
is driven by profit.
Kia, just out of curiosity, just to get back a little bit to Iran and your family, what religion do your like your parents come from? You're Persian, right? So like, do you have like Zoroastro beliefs in your family lineage?
I think it's a mixed bag. I think, the problem, like,
The
I
whole
don't have
area is
the
very mixed. That's why I was curious. Yeah,
yeah, so you can think of Iran as like the old school US the way it is now. It's like it has many cultures, many races. It's a melting pot, but from the old world. And then unfortunately, at some point, 1400 years ago, there was a Muslim conquest. So then Iranians were forced to be Muslim, and because they were forced to be
yeah,
Muslim, there was all these
yeah. The
other sort of.
unseated the Zoroaster belief. Yeah,
So
Zoroastrianism.
the Zoroastrians existed. I really like that religion. That's one of the things I'm exploring right now. It's
I
based
do
on
too.
three.
Actually,
It's
I very much
fascinating.
really
Yeah,
like
That's
that
where we get
religion.
some of
That's
the
why, yeah.
stories, right, of like that preceded the Epic of Gilgamesh, right, as Zoroastrian.
That's why I was curious too if like your family back to not to say antiquity, but just your ancestors, if you had people that were
I think
Zoroaster
I
or
think there,
actually
yeah,
had
for
work.
sure. I would say that. I mean, it's really based on
I
three
would imagine being
principles.
Persian in the area. Yeah,
Yeah, good thoughts, good deeds, and good words.
good
Those are the
action.
three
Yeah,
principles. Like, have good thoughts that are just good intention, good words that you say, and good deeds. So whatever that means for you, go out there in the world and do it. I think that's a great thing. I mean, obviously, I'm grossly oversimplifying it, but those are the principles. I think every Persian family, because they celebrate all sort of the Persians learned how to mold themselves to this forced religion situation. So, like in Iran, in the current Iranian government, and even dating back to 1400 years ago, Persian music existed. But because Islam has a problem with music, they started making smaller instruments where the noise won't go outside your walls. So
Interesting.
the
huh.
tar and the sitar are examples of that, where so they try to preserve their music without having to be spotted by sort of these goons, the government goons, like finding out, oh, you're playing music, oh, we're going to take you to jail and sexually assault you. And then same thing with the Persian language. So like the Persian language, phonetic, I mean, not the phonetic, but like the written language, the words, the letters look like Arabic letters, but the spoken language is mostly Farsi. It's not the same as Arabic. So if it's like an Arabic speaker, I can understand some of the words they say. I can read their language. I can write their language, but it's not the same. It's this. We learned how to preserve our language because what the Arabs tried to do through the Muslim conquest, they tried to erase us. They tried to erase our language. They tried to erase our culture, erase all these things about being Persian. And this is like one of the biggest sort of if you go tell somebody, hey, are you just like Arab? Like Persian people have a big problem with that because we see the Arab conquest and the Muslim conquest as the biggest failure and biggest tragedy in our cultural history, because they
You're talking
forcefully came and forced
you're talking the Umayyads, right?
the
In
oh
the
my God, well
1400s.
well no, I mean Muhammad, the prophet Muhammad, he started the Muslim conquest, right? There was a period of time where he sent letters as far as the Roman Empire in the West, as far as his messengers could send it. Hey, we have this religion called Islam. You need to be part of it, and if you're not part of it, there's going to be consequences. And Iran ended up being one of those consequences, being that they were Zoroastrian. So this is like a really big thing for Persian people. Like, we're not the same as Arabs. Throughout history, we tried to genetically uh like there was a genetic narrative going on, like, oh, how Arab somebody is or how Arab somebody's not, but primarily through culture and language and music we try to preserve, and that is why you see the differences. So a lot of times Persian people get offended if you say, oh, you're Middle Eastern. No, Middle East is a term Ronald Reagan gave to the area.
Right.
And also Middle East, the word Middle East could be offensive, because east of what? Why is the
Yeah,
West the reference? Why
yeah,
why are
you're
being
the
why are we being referenced based on what's in the West? That there's that narrative, right? So there's all these things, but
yeah, Middle East came around because the United Kingdom considered their places in Singapore and the Philippines as the Far East. And so
east
their
of the reference
holdings,
point, which is
yeah,
England.
Yeah.
So
exactly. And their holdings in in Palestine, and their holdings in dealings with Iran even at the time
imperialism.
was the
Yeah.
middle of that east. Yeah,
So
exactly.
then I think that
The colonizer term for sure.
that leads to a question, right? Like, so having a critique of the West, essentially, the West is ignorant in its effect of grouping and categorizing people together, right? And like the consequences of that are also can be pretty tragic, right? Because when you tend to lump people together, then people take offense to that. So knowing that the West kind of has that track record, what, like, when we kind of step into Iran today, um like, knowing our track record with like multiculturalism, lumping people together, and stuff like regime change, what gives you faith in the American government and like the Israeli government in this campaign that they will actually do right by the people of Iran?
well, nobody's seen tomorrow. We don't know everything that's going to happen. If I had a magic button, I would totally press it and see what happens. But it seems that it is well intentioned. I think it's you have to look at history. It's really important to look at history and learn from it, and look at what happened and where we are now. The Islamist regime in Iran, they've been around for 47 years. For 47 years, they have taken the lives of well over 100,000 documented. There's folks that say over a million. I like to stay with the officially reported things, even though my personal opinions
To
might
skew
be
higher.
somewhat different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we need to be objective and be fair, right? So I'm trying. The goal is to be that, right? Well over 100,000. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That is a lot of people to kill because they don't agree with you. And for 47 years, they've been chanting "Death to America," which I had a personal experience in first grade. For 47 years, they're a totalitarian regime, and because they happen to be holding the guns, they get to tell people what to do. So, I remember, John, you had made a comment about, like, and I know you may ask this a little bit later, but I think it's related, about how you feel, if you feel safe in America,
Right.
right? Because of this thing that happened and now makes you feel unsafe. But I think the reality of it is, if a government has gone so far as to behave in a way where, if you feel like, if you protest it in some way, let alone as far as attacking it, that they will be making you feel unsafe, that didn't happen overnight. That means this thing is a cancer that's existed for so long and has grown so much that now we have to have a commentary about safety. Well, then this government doesn't have legitimacy. It's not a legitimate government. No government that attacks its own people is legitimate. Which brings me next to my next point. So last in January 8th and 9th, they killed 40,000 people in 2 days. That's more than the rate of killing of Hitler. They were saying Hitler was killing like 250 people per minute. This is like 500 people per minute. And those are the official ones. There's 30 cities that came out and protested the government in January, on average 3 to 4,000 people. And the visual evidence shows that when a street is full of people and they're just keep going and going, that's usually like, if you're looking at a 2 or 3 city blocks worth of people that you can't find an empty spot, that is hundreds of thousands of people. Now extrapolate that to 30 different cities, and let's just call it 3,000. I'm just going to be super grossly under. That's about 100,000 people. But outlets, I mean, the problem is, like, Iran doesn't let journalists in. They shut down the internet. If you're a journalist and you want to do arms reporting, I'm sorry, you're not coming into Iran.
Yeah.
And so unless you are being paid, unless something fishy is going on, they're not going to come and film themselves killing people, obviously. So even if we just take last month, which is not a good way of measuring, but that means the government's not legitimate. And, imagine like, what people call in the US as insurrections, where the folks that came out and went into the White House. I'm not going to get into a debate on like if that's right or wrong and all that kind of stuff. I'm just saying, if you want to objectively compare what happened in Iran in January, imagine if the US government machine gunned every single one of those people that went into the White House. What would your reaction be? That's not humanitarian. Did we machine gun them down? No, we did not. No, we did not. It turned into a heated political debate, which we can talk about if you want to. But the point I'm trying to make is, look how extreme a government is. Now, are we going to, as Americans, going back to your point about like, me siding with Israel and US, right? Are we going to just watch that happen? Is that cool? It's cool. It's because it's not over here, right? Like, it's cool. Let them. No. And the reason is because, not just because what's happening is wrong, it's because it's impacting you as an American. In 2024, the Iranian government conducted presidential elections in 50 different US cities. I have the screenshots. I went and disrupted the one that was in Seattle. Do you think a regime like that should be allowed this was under the Biden administration? I'm not going to get into all Biden versus Trump and others. I'm just saying, do you think a regime that kills and sexually assaults and erases anybody that doesn't agree with it, do you think that nation should be able to come in our soil and conduct presidential elections? Do you think that's okay? And by the way, when they come in here, they surveil Americans. They send artists from Iran under the name that they're artists. Iranian Americans go pay for that, and they collect their credit card information. And that is one of the reasons why you get these the India scammers or whatever. That is where that information is coming from. They're surveilling Americans, then going to some other.
How many Iranians live in the United States that have like voting status or voting ability in Iran?
A lot.
Iranian
I mean, I think
elections?
outside of the US, I can do a quick search. I know for sure, like outside of Iran, there's between 8 to 12 million Iranians.
So
And
they
a
get
few
to
million.
vote because the regime essentially won't let them renounce their citizenship. They get to vote abroad for the Iranian elections. Is that what you're saying?
No. So majority of Iranians, that they're called also the diaspora,
Right.
diaspora. They fled Iran because of persecution. So majority of the Iranians that live outside of Iran are against the Islamist regime in Iran, also known as IRGC, also known as blah 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 blah. But the ones that are, I'm not understanding your question. Are you saying?
Well, you were saying that you disrupted. What did you disrupt here in 2024? What were you disrupting?
So they had the presidential elections. I found out
It
about
was
the
the
website.
Iranian presidential elections, right?
Yes, in
But
under
if
the
they're
Biden administration.
so, who's voting in it?
The Iranians that are supporters of that regime, the very
Oh,
few
so there are
thousand.
okay, but you're allowed to
Absolutely.
live
But
here
majority of the,
and vote still? That's crazy.
well, right, exactly. How
Well,
do we not
not
have a
crazy.
problem with that?
Well, hold on. I think it's crazy because I think it's crazy that Iran allows their people that live here and support the regime to still vote here. I think that's nuts. Now, allowing another country to have their elections here because they're from another place. If you disallow one country, you then start a project where you're going to disallow a bunch of other countries. I could see why they would allow it in the United States, but
I
I'm
can't see.
saying,
I can't see, because if a government is tyrannical, if it's
yeah,
a
but that's not. But that's
totalitarian
yeah,
dictatorship,
but I understand. I completely get it, I'm on your side. They're fucked up. They're crazy fucked up. But it's just not, especially with the United States's prior connections to with helping it get fucked up. We're the last people that should be getting involved, in my mind, in that sense of like, oh, they're illegitimate. We should go overthrow it, or we should step in to try to legitimize them, or put something in. We're the last, I would be barking up the UN. I'd be like, the UN needs to go and step in and replace this illegitimate government. Like, I'm
Well,
100% with you that they're illegitimate.
the problem is the UN and function is it's more of a marketing place for various
Well, yeah, it's been
governments.
defanged over the
The
20th century for sure, the late
yeah,
20th
that's the
century.
problem with the UN. But then going back to what you were saying about, yes, like the US, we have a long track record, both good and bad. Lots of goods, lots of bads. Like I would say the worst is Hiroshima, where the atomic bomb, all that kind of stuff. I think the US also has a reputation of policing the world. I think sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. But the times that we got it wrong have overshadowed the vast majority of things, to where when we do something right, it's still sort of, there's a whole pushback against it. There's a big thing against it. And in the case of Iran, we have definitely got it right. And I have strong evidence for that, because the thing is, like, it's, yes, it's like a perspective of like policing the world, like being a globalist type of perspective slash imperialist. I would say the imperialist attribution is more on the British side, because they had the monarchy for so long. Um, but it's, you have to look at the most simple example is, if you see somebody being sexually assaulted in front of you, do you just walk by? Because
No,
you tell yourself, it's none of my business.
no.
But then if you do decide to do something, there's levels to that, right? So, some folks, you might call the police, you might go try to stop the person, you might, there's different ways of doing it. And I think we should have a debate about doing something about it, and try to do it to where the least amount of people are negatively impacted.
Right.
That's one side of the story. The other side of the story is, if these folks that come and vote, right, a lot of the Islamist regime daughters and sons in Iran, there's limited universities. And because there's limited universities, the good ones that are at the level of Harvards of the world, the Stanfords of the world, that are globally recognized, one of them is called Sharif University, Sharif University. Um, because there's not that many resources in Iran. And free education to the gifted, because in the US we have like gifted and talented schools, like where folks that are smarter and they get to get scholarships and so on. Well, in Iran, if you're a head of a regime, if you're somebody in the regime, your daughter and your son kicks out the person who was actually smart and takes their spot. And then what happens is they get their undergrad degree, then they come to the US. They come and say, "Oh, hey Harvard, hey Stanford, hey, so XYZ, here, I went to a really prestigious university in Iran. You should give me a scholarship and accept me." And it happens. Then they end up going to working for tech companies like Facebook. Like, they get good jobs. They get hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I see that as guess what? Americans should have that job. Not the person. Yes, we should have talent coming in and contributing to the country legally. I agree with all of that. But this person cheated. They cheated the Iranian system. Now they're coming here. And then guess what? They mine data, and there's evidence of this. I can send you links of people who have done this. They steal our information as Americans and they sell it to God knows who on the
Data
dark
brokers or
web.
whatever.
And do you think that's right? Now, most of the time, they say, oh no, Keya, you're, anti-immigration. They kind of sort of give the attribution, but that's really, if you really look at the reality of it, in the case of Iran, that's what's happening. Don't you think an American kid that grew up in this country, that pay taxes in the country, should have the opportunity to go to a good school and
We
contribute
we
back?
we have our own homegrown nepotism. God damn it, we should have that homegrown nepotistic kid get the
Sure,
scholarship
No,
degree.
I see.
sure.
I
No,
see what you're.
I'm just saying,
I'm
like,
making light of it just
I see
for
what
oh, no,
you're
no, I'm
fun's
just
sake,
saying.
saying, like,
but
if you're a kid, if you have kids, right? I'm not blessed to have kids yet. Hopefully one day. But if I had kids and they worked really hard in this country, and They pay taxes to this country. They grew up in this country. They're deserving to go to a good school, but they're being kicked out in favor of a person who cheated in Iran because their parents kicked out some other kid. So you're kicking out,
Their
like,
parents
going
were
back to
part of
what
the
I said in the beginning.
theocracy. Their parents were
Yeah,
buddied up to the regime, so they got
they're
the
buddied up to the
initial
regime. They
spot.
took
Yeah.
that kid's spot, and now they're taking your kid's spot. Not only that, now they go in these tax havens. They don't pay taxes in the US. They start these shell companies, all these fancy things that I'm not really, I'm not a millionaire. I'm not a there yet in life. I like to be in my head. But, then they don't pay their fair share. Then their kids take spots away from American kids who, I think at some point we have to say, like, America first is not a bad thing. If we're going to say, like, John, you made a comment the other day, you said American blood. And I think that's so valuable what you said, because when we say America, what does that mean to us? And what does that mean to the world? It's not just guns and glory. It's music. It's standing up for the right thing. Uh, uh, Artists and poets and burgers and pizza and hot dogs and a good baseball game or a football
Oh
game. Those are
yeah,
all a
dude.
lot of
Yee
things.
yee.
Yeah, comic books.
No,
That
I
flag means so much to me,
it
The
does.
and
the
it's
Yeah.
not.
problem the problem is that currently in this day and age in America, we have people protesting the Super Bowl party because they don't agree with the music that's coming on. So like America is all those things. I'm 100% with you, but there's a huge portion of America right now that resents all those things. And
Yeah, are you
unfortunately, all those
referencing?
people are in power too.
Yeah, you're referencing the Spanish music in the latest Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, and how that
And
pissed up a lot of people off, and it's ridiculous that that pisses people off.
and
I
it's
Especially
I
with
love the
Puerto
Super
Rico
Bowl, Bad Bunny
being
Super Bowl.
it's
A
being
part of
part of
America.
America.
but I would, in the narrative and the topic that we're speaking today, regardless of which way that debate goes, don't you think the fact that we're allowed to debate it without consequences of somebody coming to your house, if this happened in Iran, somebody's going to come to your house and say, "Oh yeah, you didn't speak in favor of the government because
Well,
whatever the topic is,
that is
we're going to take you
that
away.
is
We're going to
happening
rape
in
you. We're
America
going to
now.
jail you. We're going to
Well,
kill
not
your
that. They're
family."
not, that's
But
not.
okay,
Yeah.
So
and
I
They're
think
well,
coming
this
to your
is
door, but they're
where
not doing the other part. No.
I
Yeah.
think this is where
yeah,
we talked off camera, Kia, right? Is like this is why
sure.
in the United States we
Uh,
like people
we have to preserve that. We have to
correct.
preserve the freedom of speech. So I agree with you there. So let me actually point to that. Anytime, and this is not just religion, any cult, any group that comes and tries to take your freedom of speech away, it's okay. I think, look, political discourse is great. I don't know, for example, all of John's line of thinking and all of your line of thinking, Randall, in terms of like politics. But I do know it's okay that if we have political discourse, we're not going to grab some baseball bats and bash each other's head or come in and violate your human rights because of what you're saying or what you're doing. Now, if what you're saying and what you're doing is calling for that violence, hell yeah, I have a problem with that. If you're saying, "Hey guys, let's go to Kia's house and just steal and pillage and rape and all that kind of stuff because of what he said," hell yeah, we need to do something about it. But if it's at a level of, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, and
Mhm.
that's the level that's happening in Iran. And it's what I'm trying to say. It's not, if we do something about that, it's because it also impacts you as an American, because that governments like that send their people here and impact your children and impact your culture. And do you see what I'm saying? So it's not as if we're sitting here and we can say, "Well, why should we care?" Why? Well, you should care because it's going to impact you.
So then
That's what I'm
I
saying.
guess. Oh, go ahead, John.
so I guess that then I'll ask you, right? Like we've seen in America, we have been shown like the data that we've seen is that the recent strike on the girls' school was the result of American and Israeli intervention.
That's
You however have said on your family you believe this to be the IRGC. So like what
yes.
is kind of what you're
I have proof
saying?
of that.
So So
Yes.
yeah,
So
where do
there's
we go from here with
yeah,
that?
so the schoolgirl thing. So again, let's ask what's the right thing to do? How do we take out a government, right? Um, and allow Iranians that live in Iran decide their own future through a democratic process. Now, if they want it to be a parliamentary monarchy where the king is just a cultural symbol and doesn't in action have powers that are executive powers similar to England or Sweden or countries, European countries that have a parliamentary monarchy where there is a parliament that represents the different factions and groups in society, whether they want it to be that, whether they want it to be a democratic republic, whether they want it to be some form of democracy, right? How do we give people that? Well, let's take a step back. Why should we be the ones who give them that? Why can't they do that for themselves?
I think that's
Let's
a
look at that
question that
first.
we were asking, right? We believe that they were
Fair
very
question,
close
yeah.
to doing it on their own.
Let's start that. Yeah, let's start there. Let's take a step back before we say, okay, we're the US and we like to police the world narrative. Well, guess what? Iranians have been trying to do that for 47 years. They've had 6 different uprisings, where they 5 or 6 different uprisings where they tried to through reform, through political discourse, where, for example, they protest by not wearing their hijab. Nothing violent, because the hijab is the veil, the Muslim veil
Mm.
is compulsory. It's mandatory in Iran. They tried that. They have failed in every segment of the way. Every time they came out, they got killed more and more and more and more. The height of which was January, where they killed 40,000. Again, that's the official number. It's much higher.
So then here,
So
let me ask
in
you
a
this real
scenario like
quick
that, you
about
don't
the
have an option.
so let me ask you this, right? So some of the stuff that we saw recently coming out of Iran during the protests were, say, women without hijabs, stuff like that, saying, "Oh, like we do have freedom here." Would you argue that maybe those women without hijabs are like daughters and women of the regime trying to push that narrative, or are those people
No,
who are
no.
actually protesting?
Majority. There could be some, right? I can't really sit here and speak with absolution, right? I can't say. I can give you what I see and the evidence that I see that is in the majority. Majority of people that live in Iran currently do not want the Islamic Republic to be the regime. They want a secular, democratic. Now, again, they can, through referendum, they can decide how they want. Well, that's a different conversation, right? They can have it to be a democratic republic. They can have it to be a parliamentary monarchy, whatever they want it, that form of it to be through referendum. That's whenever they're free, finally. But currently in Iran, they do not want this government. They don't want a totalitarian regime because they've lived it for 47 years.
So then you would say, right, like maybe the sympathies.
They've exhausted all their options, to say it nicely, to do reform. They don't have
What
a tool anymore. So
what
there has
stops
to be
it
military intervention. It has to be some country that helps them do it. And it happens to be in this time, in this era, in this time in history, it happens to be Israel and the US. And it's Israel
what
and the
stops it
US
from
because
being an internal military intervention? What stops it from civil war breaking out in order to
because they don't have, so in the US you can have that conversation because people have guns. In the Iran, people don't have guns.
Yeah, but
And the
they
guns,
have one of the largest land borders in the area. They can smuggle weapons over from all over that
they've
area.
tried and they've
There's
failed.
weapons all over that area.
Sure, they've tried and they've failed. And the groups that have, I guess a more accurate answer to your question would be it has happened and it has failed factually. Like there's Kurdish groups that have owned them. They have not risen to the level where they can do that. Otherwise, they would have done it by now. Because guess what? In Iran, like I mentioned, like Iran's like an old school US where there's all cultures and religions melting pot. Every facet of Iranian culture, religion, diverse, everything that is not Shiite Muslim or Sunni Muslim has been invaded.
So then
And, and, and
would you say that the regime is essentially using, so I think that like a lot of maybe what I see on my feed, right, is what you're saying is controlled, right? Because your argument is that the only thing that we see out of Iran right now, like a guy on the street, is going to be for the regime, correct? Like if he's interviewing people and he's in Iran right now,
yes,
that's
yes,
the
because if
regime.
you're 100%, because and that's what they're showing you guys, because they have so much money than us. And
Okay,
when I say us, the opposition to, they are spending millions. I looked at an ad, because Instagram lets you like look at the ad spending and everything. I was targeted an ad that was pro-regime, saying that, "Oh, nothing's going on in Iran. Oh, look at us. Like look at what's going on. Israel is hitting us, and this is not justified. It's not humanitarian." It cuts away to like these regime soldiers being wounded and paraded around. And obviously somebody like me, I immediately look at that. I'm like, okay, that's been paid for the regime. But my curiosity is like, okay, well, let me click on that particular ad was spending, guess how much a week? 40,000 and some change a week.
so then
Iranian
do you think
I'm sorry, go ahead.
do you think that the United States then, like, let's say so we have our freedoms here, right? We have our freedom of speech, we have our freedom to protect ourselves, we have our freedom of religion. It kind of seems like the regime is almost using our freedom of religion against like our own American inclination to get involved against Shia. Would you say that that's correct? Like they're kind of preying
I
on
think
the sympathies of they're preying on our sympathies of freedom of religion in hopes that we won't go in for the regime or that we would support the regime because, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, so when a government is spending just on one particular ad, that's just one ad. And when I say one ad, like one exact sequence of ad, right? Like a specific thing, right? If they're spending 40,000 on just that, don't you think they're trying to influence your line of thinking? If CNN has not covered over 40,000 people machine gunned and raped and pillaged in January, they did not cover it. The only network that really covered it the most is Fox News. But in America, as soon as you say Fox News, they say, well, fuck you because you said Fox News. Fuck you because I'm Democrat. And anything that Fox or Donald Trump has to say, they're both a piece of shit and we're not going to listen to it. So part of that sentiment is because of we're so divided as Americans. Like I said in the beginning of this conversation, I like to ask, can we choose a candidate that is saying what's good for Americans? Let's put aside the red and blue. Does John's kids have enough money to go to school? Does he have good health care? That's my ideal. If I had to press a button, that's the candidate that I want. Unfortunately, we don't live in that. It's either Coke or Pepsi, blue, red or white, Trump or whoever else, right? But let's set that aside for a second. So what I'm saying is this government is influencing so much that the biggest news outlets that are supposed to report objectively are not reporting on the death of 40,000 people. Do you see a problem with that? And then now, 2 months later, they're all of a sudden saying, "Oh, look, we're striking Iran." That's bad journalism. It's like if you said, John, if you said a sentence and you said, "Some people say Trump is a good person. However, I don't think so because of XYZ evidence." And if some news outlet just cut out the part where you said, "I think Trump is a good person," do you think that's good journalism? That's shitty journalism. And that's what's happening right now with all these news outlets. And the reason it's like that is because if now they come and cover it, they're going to lose their audience. And a company's built on profit. Why would a company, like that whole thing we talked about, like why would a company come and give you $1 million if they had no expectations? So if they come and cover that, now they're not going to the narrative that appeals to their audience. So you are no longer an objective journalist because now you're not covering the biggest human tragedy in the 21st century. To 50,000, in my personal estimate, 100,000 in 2 days. We did not, was crickets. And Iranian diaspora all over the world, we kept posting on Instagram. I made videos, I made whatever. Everybody did. Nobody heard us out.
How
And then now
How
all
how we're
how are they committing these like 50,000 executions in 2 days? Is it by
machine
shootings?
guns. They're bringing
Shootings.
military grade ammunition. It is the most depressing. Like Iranian community is very small, so all of us have a family members that's dead because of it.
Because
And
the
then
reason I ask is because when I was learning, I have a excuse me, a bachelor's degree in genocide studies, and when I was learning about the carryings out of the pogroms in Eastern Europe during World War II and people getting rounded up and killed during that. Just, shooting 30 or 40 people into an open pit would leave the people perpetrating the shootings with mental, like, effects for life, and that was the reason to facilitate gassing as a way to make the people committing the genocide to be more mentally less affected.
And I think,
So
Keya,
shooting
what you would
50,000
say is that
by
they were doing this with a
is
smile on
crazy,
their
yeah.
face, though, right? This regime
It's nuts.
was almost
I
taking
would
joy in
say,
it.
not yeah, a lot of their goons kinda came on social media and said, "Oh, you see how you," because this is like the 6th or 7th time Iranians have had an uprising. It's nonviolent. None of those protesters, uh, you know how, like, in American history, we say, like, "Oh, Black Lives Matter." Like, some of the news outlets were, like, saying, "Oh, look at them. They're, like, torching stores and stealing," and try to, like, connect that. Like, do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like, in American history?
Yeah, on Fox News.
Right, right. And this they couldn't even do that. They had no footage of somebody going and stealing or pillaging and, like, torching. These were nonviolent protesters, but which, by the way, the way it happened is because of, ironically, because of money, because Iran is a totalitarian dictator regime where they print money to keep the value of their currency, which is the rial, RIAL, Iranian rial. The value of every $1, so Iranian rial, they always omit one of the zeros and it becomes Toman, Toman. So every $1, it came to a point 2 months ago where every $1 American dollar was 150,000 Tomans.
Oh, wow. So their inflation was just crazy.
The inflation, insane. Many Iranians don't eat meat anymore. That is so tragic because they just can't afford it. They cannot afford. In America, you can make, like, minimum wages at a range of, like, $13 to $18, let's just call it. You can, with $13, you can go to McDonald's, you can buy, like, a couple of
That's one
burgers,
of the
right?
things my
I'm
dad
not
talks
saying
about, right? I'll always talk to him about, how much harder it is for us now than it was for them.
it is. It is harder
It
for
is
us.
harder
It is
for
harder
us
for us.
now, but food is actually, even though we're seeing a slow increase in food now, he'll always try and make the argument that food is technically cheaper now. I don't know if I see it, but that's
I don't
from
agree
his
with if it's cheaper.
I think that's a crock of
Yeah.
that's
bullshit,
from
yeah.
from
I
his
think if you
perspective, or
yeah, like, if you go
luxuries.
right now,
Luxuries are cheaper now.
yeah, if you go to a
So
grocery store nowadays and you'll barely get away, you have to spend at least $100, right? If you wanted your bare necessities,
so
but
so I
I do agree with that, but
so the theme so I think, Kia, the theme that we're seeing here, right, is that you're you're sounding the alarm, right? You're sounding the alarm that we've seen propaganda from Iran, that people are happy, that don't believe what you see. That's the propaganda. You're 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 here saying that just because it's a news outlet like Fox, that we can't immediately ignore it. And you would say that there are some reasons why we maybe didn't see it right away on other outlets like CNN or MSNBC.
100%. It's not maybe, we didn't. If you go back in January and you look at CBS, ABC, CNN, they are they're barely reporting the death of 40,000 people. Now, am I sitting here and saying I condone every single thing that Fox and News and Donald Trump and his administration? No, this is not that. What I'm saying is, can we please be objective?
On
Can we
this
please,
issue, yeah, you're objective about it.
on this particular issue, like,
My
I,
thought, Kia, is that with previous involvement from the United States and Iran, obviously didn't end well, right? But we both could agree to that, right?
sure.
And um, should be said for the UK and Iran. Arguably, they ended worse. Now, with that being said, I think it's important to say that the other country that's involved in these strikes with the United States is Israel, and you're upset, and rightfully so, 100% rightfully so, about the threat of you saying something online and people showing up at your door because they're mad about what you said, and you could say that's happening in the United States right now
In the
about people
UK, it's
speaking.
happened.
Yeah.
Well,
50
because they don't have freedom of speech, but you could say that's happening now in the United States, where people are saying, this government is being controlled by Israel, and then they're having their local sheriff department show up at their doorstep and being like, "Did you post this online?"
Did you?
Like
Yeah,
that.
and by side
Those
note,
are things that's happening too.
yeah, side note to support what you're saying, around 50,000 people were arrested in the UK for something as simple as a Facebook
Yeah.
post, which arguably is not we're not calling for violence. If you're saying something critical of your government, I think there's like people play around with words a lot. If I'm saying point blank, hey guys, look, we're gonna go to John's house. I call on everybody to go on John's house and commit violence. That is point blank calling for violence. I think most reasonable people will agree, right? But if you're not calling for violence and you're criticizing your government, that's there. We got a problem.
Yeah.
And if it's happening in UK, it is connected to you as an American. You
Mhm.
cannot ignore that. You cannot say, "Oh, it's not my problem." No, it is your problem, because that export of ideology, it's ideology. Then it's going to export itself into your country, your children, your
And I think
surroundings, and your environment.
that's what Randall's saying, is that we feel, and a big theme of our podcast recently has been, we feel in the United States that there's essentially ideas of suppressing the First Amendment, right? Because there's a lot of us have seen seen that a lot of our politicians are bought and paid for, right? Like you're saying, they should wear the
Take money out of politics.
they should wear the
Yeah,
billboard
take
up
it
on
out of
their head, right? They should wear the NASCAR jacket, and we're seeing that a lot of them are bought and paid for by a foreign country. So
Well,
so it leads
so
us.
you have the two countries though that are committing these open warfare on Israel and taking out their leadership regime, which again, yeah,
Iran.
excuse me, on Iran, excuse me, the United States and Israel committing it on Iran, which again, good riddance to Khomeini, good riddance. I don't think you'll find anyone who's
So
sad about that.
Khomeini was the one that died in I think sometime in the 80s. Ney is the one that just recently died last
Sorry,
Khamenei.
did I
week.
say I said
Khamenei
that's
and
what I meant.
No,
Khomeini.
no,
I
it's
said his
okay.
name
Their names are so similar. I understand, but I
Khomeini
just
and
want to make
Khamenei.
sure
Okay.
you knew that.
yeah,
Okay.
Ali Khamenei. I think that's
Khamenei.
his name, right?
Khamenei. Yeah, it's hard to say
Yeah.
in English, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Khamenei is like the
Exactly. So
honestly,
I
I
don't
don't
think you'll
even
find
care to say his
anyone.
name right.
I don't think you'll
Yeah.
find anyone who will ever mourn him at all, besides people from the administration and their regime.
Sure.
But
Some of
I
which
can't help.
live here. Some of which live here in the US. They organize mourning ceremonies.
You're
And
gonna find nut jobs anywhere in the United States that
right.
support it. That
Right.
type of stuff.
Well,
That's
here's
the
the
problem with
problem.
being
Here's
a
the
big
problem.
melting
They
pot of the United
align
States.
themselves with the pro-Palestine folks. So anywhere you see mourning for Khamenei, because the Iranian regime factually backs Hamas, then you will see the current Iranian flag, which is not the flag that we condone, which is not the law. The law, anywhere you see the flag, red, white, and blue with the lion and the sun, there's a lion with holding a sword and a sun coming out of his back. That is the true flag of Iran. That is the flag of Iran that existed before 1997. But you will not see that with the pro-Palestine folks. The pro-Palestine folks align themselves, or rather the other way around, with the Iranian regime flag,
So this is
because
where
the Iranian regime
But that's
100%
what I'm
backs
trying to
Hamas.
that's what I'm trying to say though, is that like so you have the one side supported by Israel, right? And if Israel has done these atrocities in Iran, or excuse me, in Palestine, that leads Palestine to have these resistance movements like Hamas grow naturally out of their own function. I'm asking what stops those resistance groups from having formed in Iran over the course of their
It
oppressive
has
regime.
formed resistance forms. So two thoughts on that. First of all, I can't criticize that, because if I criticize that, they say, "Oh, hey, look at Keya, he's anti-Palestine." If I criticize, because of the fact that the Iranian government factually backs Hamas, this is why, in my book, Hamas is a terrorist organization. Why? Because I know I may not know about Hamas, but I can't really speak on Hamas, but I can 100 speak on the Iranian government. Iranian government is a terrorist government. So if a terrorist government is funding Hamas, that means their interest through money
with
is with Hamas.
with that same logic though.
I'm not
Hold on.
debating.
With that same logic though, Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government funded Hamas and have been found to have done that. They were giving briefcases and suitcases full of money and taking it through Qatar and
I
putting it in
wasn't
the back
aware
of
of that. Yeah,
cars to
so I
Hamas.
wasn't
Yeah,
aware of that, but yeah, yeah,
prior to
I'll
the
look that
war
up. But
prior to the war in Palestine, Benjamin Netanyahu was looking at prison time for having secretly funneled money to Hamas because he wanted to keep Hamas as kind of a Palestine boogeyman that he could always attack, right? And always like
I'll
raise
have to.
the people up against.
So
And
I
Yeah, I'll
so
have
think
to
using
look it
that
up. But
so,
same
what I'm
Randall.
saying is, I'm not.
using that same argument though, that means that Israel is a terrorist state that
If
supports
it's
because they're
true,
supporting. See what I'm
sure,
saying?
sure. But remember, we have to look at like what is good for human beings. Do we want people to be free, have freedom of speech, have a good education, good health
I
care,
don't
blah blah
think
blah
Absolutely.
blah?
anyone's
Yes.
arguing that. I
How
think
do we?
that
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure,
what
sure.
we're getting
But
at,
what I'm
right,
saying
is
is,
do we trust you? I think that it's a safe bet to say a safer bet to say trust America, but I think that there's this like parentheses around it, like America is also very sympathetic to the Zionist cause,
And
and
very much in control of the Zionist cause,
so
yeah. And like with the history of Iran and Israel, how do you convince normal Israelis, or excuse me, normal Iranians that that uh
Israel just isn't going to
working with
mow
Israel as an
down
ally
Iran.
is in their best interest? How do you
okay.
convince them that
So,
that's
so there's a lot of facts there. So on the Israeli side of things, so my belief is that the strikes on Iran is justified. In this particular case, U.S. and Israel have gotten it right. For 47 years, Iran has chanted death to America. Iran has chanted death to Israel. Iran says that the current regime in Iran, the Islamist regime in Iran, aka IRGC, they believe, it's ideology, they believe that Israel should be wiped off the map. Okay. Now, if you want to get into the Israel-Palestine debate, I think that's a topic for another day. But if you are a person who believes that is in a two-state solution, right? So if there's a two-state solution based on the 1947, 1948 borders, I'm not saying that's my belief. I'm saying if you are a person, I have to be very careful. This is like eggshell top type of a conversation here. But if you believe that, well, first of all, Hamas believes that all of the current, what's known as current Israel should be Palestine. Israel believes the opposite. But there was a moment in time where there was a two-state solution based on 1947/48 borders, where there was a two-state solution, right? Even in the scenario of a two-state solution, the Iranian government believes that it should be wiped off the map. In a two-state solution where there are innocent Israelis that live inside, some of them are, which, by the way, are Arab Israeli Arabs that do exist. I'm
in
not going
that
to talk about
19
whether or not
in that 1948 1949 resolution where they
47,
tried to
47.
47, 48, where they tried to establish a two-state solution. Palestine never agreed to that.
I understand. No, I understand that.
So
Because, well,
there
first of
wasn't
all,
ever a two-state
they weren't at
solution.
the
It got brought to the
table.
table and it
Yeah, they weren't even at the
and it never
table,
went
right? So
anywhere from there.
right. So the British government. Are you talking about when the British government was involved and they were drawing the
So I
borders?
think
Yeah.
so for
No,
this
I'm saying
for this argument
for the sake of the debate, right?
for
I'm saying for the sake
for
of
this
debate,
argument
if
we have
we
to believe
agree,
that is for yes, for the sake of this argument, we have to believe that the past can't be undone and Israel is here to stay, right? That's for
okay,
the
so
sake
even
of
in
this
that
argument.
scenario, right? So even in that scenario, I'm saying, and there's three different scenarios, right? Either the whole thing is Palestine, or the whole thing is Israel, or there's a two-state solution. There's nothing outside of that. And you can debate about where those, like the middle is, right? What I'm saying is, in all three of those scenarios, there are going to be people that will no longer exist because of the Iranian government's perspective. Because Iran believes there should be zero Jewish people. Zero. Iran believes there should be not
Zero
Iranians,
Jewish
not
people,
Iran.
zero Jewish
So
people, or
is
Zero.
zeros.
All Jews should not exist. I'm talking about the perspective of the current Iranian regime, the Islamist regime in Iran. IRGC believes there should be no Jewish people. The state of Israel should not exist. No scenario should exist where either a Jewish person of Jewish descent or Jewish religion should
If
exist.
Israel didn't
That is their
exist, would the IRGC want to exterminate Jews, say in Europe?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Yes. They are an anti-Jewish
So if
state.
Israel
They are
didn't
a totalitarian.
if Israel didn't exist, they would still want to wipe out their ideology is they would want to wipe out Jews abroad.
They view the current Iranian Islamist regime in Iran views, from to my knowledge and my experience, no Israel and no Jewish people should exist because they are a existential threat to their
What
state.
what
I'm
what
not
kind of
talking about
persecution?
religion. I'm
Yeah.
very careful. Please understand what I'm talking about. To be specific, the current borders, the current state of the current Iranian regime government.
Yes.
What is represented on the map of the current Iranian regime? The Islamist regime in Iran. This is specifically IRGC. I'm specifically talking about that. They view Jewish people and the state of Israel in any shape or
An
form
existential threat.
as an existential threat to
So
that
even if they
state,
didn't
to
have a
this current
country,
The
even
government.
if they
government,
didn't have a
not the religion.
yeah,
Not the people. The religion
Yeah.
is a different conversation,
Okay.
but the
right?
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna
IRGC
say because
it's
there's
like
a large
saying,
amount of Jews
so you're
living
saying that the
in Iran. So that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
is against the IRGC. If there was no state of Israel, they would still view the Jewish people as an existential
Yeah,
threat.
100%. Yes, because in multiple of their, you can reference, don't take my word for it, right? It's always research. There is multiple talks, like TED Talk style, like they're talking to a group of people, like a cleric, like a Muslim cleric, referring to them as Bani Israel, the lineage of Israel, the group of people that are a lineage of Israel are a threat, are the cause of the root of all evil,
And then this
are
also
the
goes into we
are
have to understand that Shia Muslim and Sunni Muslim are different, right? And Shia, they actually believe in the lineage of Muhammad being the leaders of the faith,
in
right?
Sunni. So in the Sunni religion, it stops at Muhammad.
Yes.
In the Shia religion, there are 12 more appointed imams or clerics, the 12th one of which has not, kind of like a Jesus character, like
Come yeah.
he hasn't shown up
The
yet. There's a name for it, right?
Yeah,
the
that'd be
obfuscation, the grand obfuscation or something like that.
Like the Jesus is supposed to come back
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Like they
yeah,
have that for
you
their
can go
12th
further.
cleric.
You can go further than that then, and you can say that there's imamism too, which is the belief in that imam.
So
Yeah.
specifically, particularly in the Shia part of the house, in Iran, again, I'm not. Please don't.
No, we
I
got
don't
you,
want to
Kia. We
conflate.
understand what you're
Yeah,
putting down.
this is strictly about the Iranian government, the current Islamist regime in Iran, IRGC, right? They view anybody of Jewish descendant or religion, or even as far as genetics, that anybody who was related to the Jewish religion or state as a existential threat to them, to the state of the Islamist state of Iran.
So
That
how do Jewish Iranians live then? Because
they fled. A
Iran has
lot of them fled. A lot
a
of
lot
them
of them
fled.
did,
There
but
are
it still
some
has
of
the
them
largest population
of Jewish outside of
Jews
Israel used
outside
to
of
live in
Israel.
Iran. Especially before 1979. After 1979, most of them, there's a lot of Jewish Persian folks that are living in the U.S. actually that are fled Iran because of that. The ones that stayed behind in Iran that still actually do exist and do practice their religion are protected by UN charters and human rights organizations, very closely watched.
So
In
the
my
UN is
personal
involved
opinion,
in Iran.
I'm sorry.
So the UN is involved in Iran.
Yes, but you have to understand, like, there's like a bare minimum in the same way where like Israel can like bomb all Palestinians right now and get rid of them, right? That's the like if there's a person and if the narrative in Israel can have the ability to do that, they can do the same thing in Iran. But why do they not do that? They don't do it because in the particular case of Iran is because then now they can say, hey, no, look at our country. We have all these Jewish folks practicing freely and we're not doing anything to them. Which do you see what I'm saying? They have to be able to say that
You're
in the
saying that
same
they
way.
would be, if they weren't mandated, they would have already wiped them out, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, of course. Of course. Why would they not be? Why would they go and sit under hundreds of thousands of people and say Israel's and anybody Jewish is an existential threat to us and not do it? But I'll give you,
but they haven't done it though. That's the point. I'm not
because
trying
they
to defend
can't
the
do it
Islamic.
because they want to be able to use
That's
it
my
as an
point. They can't.
excuse.
That's exactly my point, though. Is that like the reason we're being sold into this war in the United States is because they say it's, oh well, they're gonna have nukes, they're gonna have nuclear weapons, they're gonna do these things with
Well, but
nuclear
they
weapons,
did.
and it's like,
Oh, but they
but
did.
but
They
they
do.
haven't, and
But
they
they
haven't
haven't
used them, they
because
haven't done them, they've expressed through the UN that they would allow a UN
And this
watchdog
is
to
where
come
my
watch to make sure
phrase
they
of
haven't started.
let's get into
There's a
that. The
bunch more
Iranians are
stuff.
tricky. Now, see, Iranians are tricky because they'll say, come and inspect our
IRGC, the
facility.
IRGC is tricky. The IRGC is tricky.
Let me tell you, let me expose them for you. So let's say I'm the Iranian government and Randall is the UN, and Randall comes and says, hey, Keya, we through imagery, through satellite imagery and some of the reporting and the scanning we've done based on radioactivity, we know that you're enriching uranium. So, and I say, okay, no problem, Randall, come on over. I bring you to Tehran. I give you a nice little tour, waste your time, take you to some really nice food places, treat you really well. And then what I'll do is I'll take the 10 grams for every, like, let's say 1 gram of uranium. I will then dilute it by 80%.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but
Okay. I
at the
dilute it
same
by
time,
80%, and now I say, oh, come and scan it, Randall. And Randall, when he scans it, he's like, oh, okay, well, it's below the dilution danger zone. Oh, okay, guys, it's a wash. Let's go home. Nothing to see here. That is what they're doing.
yeah, no, I understand. Like they have the ability to fake their tests to make it so they can pass it.
Just
But
No,
like
it's not fake.
Volkswagen
It's
and the
not
diesel
fake.
the
stuff.
It's not fake. Yeah, it's not fake. It's just they're showing you a the word I'm looking for is
a sample that would pass the test to make
right.
it so,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
I
a
get that. So,
lie.
Teaching to the
but
test.
that's what they're lying. They're faking. They're lying. That's the same thing. But the point I'm trying to say though is if you still have those people come out and you have them do that, then they're the bad actors in that scenario for
The
lying. But
UN
if you just
or
bomb them indiscriminately because they have this threat that you're just going to have to trust me, they have this threat, then you can't prove anything. You see what I'm saying?
So they have proven it. So they've proven it because they have not allowed them to go directly to the source. If you're point blank not allowing it and or faking your tests, there is no other logical reason for you to not show, like there's basically there's no excuse. That's one point. The other point you mentioned indiscriminately. So all of the reporting, there's a website, there's a media outlet called Iran International that has the most updated news from Iran that is not connected to the regime. That is actually, I would argue, that's against the regime. There is another media outlet, in Iranian media outlet, called Manoto, Manoto, and others, Voice of America, VOA, all that. All of them have reported it's not indiscriminate bombing. They are specifically bombing based on intelligence they have with the minimum number of civilians. You have to understand, there is no other way. Because if you negotiate, we've been negotiating with them. The people of Iran have been negotiating with them. The people of Iran have been reforming them. At some point, you have to make the decision that you are going
Who
to strike. And when
who
you do
who
strike, there
can
are going to
who
be casualties.
conducted
There's no other way
who
around it.
who conducted our negotiations on the United States' behalf?
All the previous administrations, all of the previous administrations, the Clinton administration, the
Who
Bush
who can
administration,
who conducted the
the
ones that led to these strikes?
the Trump administration.
Yeah, so
But that's
who specifically though? Do you know?
well, Pete Hegseth, I mean, Marco Rubio and the CENTCOM
Jared
and
Kushner.
Jared. Well, no, he was part of it. I've followed this
He was
very
the head.
closely. He was a part of.
He was the head of it.
He was a
He was the
part of it,
head of it. This
but
wasn't a State Department
sure.
thing. This wasn't a DOD thing. This was Jared Kushner and
And
what's
even
it? It
if
was
it's
two
Jared
two
Kushner,
New York State representatives of real estate issues. Like
sure. But
when it
Randall,
comes
it
to
could be
like,
anybody. It could be anybody. What the point I'm trying to make is what
but not
came
anyone
out of
attacked them is the point. That's what I'm saying. You
attack
all these
two.
other private all these other administrations previously had never attacked the
Because
Iranian
they
regime.
negotiated, because they chose the negotiation route.
That's
And
my
what I'm
saying.
saying is, okay, but the negotiation route didn't have an output for Iranian people.
I don't think the
And
negotiation route was really like faithfully protruded or like gone through, because like even under your own idea of, well, if they don't accept UN people or they cheat through the UN system, they lie about the UN system of how they tested things.
sure.
One of the countries that's committing these bombings against them Israel doesn't
Sure.
allow UN people in to test their munitions. So
And
under
that's
that
and
same
that's I'm not
idea,
condoning
they
that.
would be a terrorist
Yeah,
organization
sure.
themselves.
I'm not
I
condoning that.
think
I'm
what
I
not
just don't
saying
think
Randall
they
is
to
should be
saying is
involved.
beware of the tactic of the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of deal.
and that's fine. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna dismiss what Randall is saying. What I'm saying is, to me, it's not a zero-sum game where if I say the negotiations here weren't fruitful, then it's not the case for Israel or vice versa. What I'm trying to say is that what is your alternative solution to
And I
this?
think
What
that we
is your
won't.
solution to a government that kills its people, rapes its people with impunity, keeps enriching uranium? By the way,
UN sanctions.
Well,
It's all you can
anyways,
do.
no, it
It's
didn't
all
work.
so
you can do.
for the sake
No, that's
of
not true.
for the
It's
sake
not all
of
you can do
moving
because
for the sake of moving this along, because we cannot put the lid back on this box, like Keya, like kind of you were saying, like he's taken out, we're moving forward. The reality that we're living in is that we can't go back and do other methods. We're now going with this method. So looking at the Iranian people today, right, i I think we should first start out with our our say reluctance for involvement is not necessarily that we don't want to bring freedom to other people, right? Like if you do believe that America truly is the last bastion of the free world against dictatorships and monarchies, we do have some sort of a duty to act, right? I think what we're saying is, are we really going to do it ethically and responsibly? I would say, what are Iranians there who do want to be freed? Like, they have to know that there's going to be some like civilian like death toll. They know that
casualties.
some casualties are going to
So
happen. Like, at what point does this campaign turn into not morally justifiable? Like, when do we say, like, with whatever outcome happens, where do we go? Like, where are we going with
so
this?
the goal is for them to wipe out the current Iranian regime in terms of their infrastructure, in terms of the people who are running it, because all of them are complicit. If you are in this genocide, and once they are gone, then under the protection, under the sort of whatever the version of military protection is, then Iranian people will conduct a referendum and elect their next leader. That's just as simple as that. The end goal is for every facet of the IRGC to be wiped off of the face of the earth. Every infrastructure, every person prosecuted. Which, by the way, um, Iranians aren't against uh, due process. There's going to be due process in the same way that the Nazis had their due process. So I understand there was a period where some of them took revenge and all that kind of stuff. We here are humanitarian. So if you are somebody who conducted a genocide, then my perspective is then you go to court, you go to jail for the rest of your life for killing and raping people, innocent people. I do think it's extremely important for us not to move on from that part of what we mentioned is going back, Randall, because you mentioned UN sanctions. What I'm saying is we did try that. They did sanction them, and they continue to kill people and impact world economy. They continue to threaten to say we're going to close the Strait of Hormuz, which is like a waterway in south of
Yep.
Iran that all
Yep.
the oil they continue. So what I'm saying is all of the routes have been exhausted. It's like it's as if my kid is walking down the street and some other kid at the bus stop bullies him. The first thing we're going to do is, hey, we'll try to work it out between yourselves. Okay, if it doesn't work, you escalate, you go to your school principal. If it doesn't work, get your teachers involved, your community involved. At some point, you have to get the police involved because if you don't, it's a threat to your child's safety. Are you then going to go and say, well, no, because I don't want this kid to go to jail? No, so then who do you care more about? Do you care about the well-being of your child? I think the same thing here applies because both Iranian people, the international community, we have countless examples of going to the UN. None of it worked.
The
And
the
so
the
some
problem though is that when you get the police involved in that scenario, the police then go to school with you.
sure,
They take a look at your lunchbox every day.
sure, and I don't agree
They
with that.
walk home
Yes, I'm there with
with you
you.
after school, and they make sure you do
I
your
am there
homework. They
with
help
you.
you with
I
your
am there with you on
like
that.
when you involve the United States in this we're spending already like $1 billion a day or some stupid, crazy, fucking astronomical number,
Sure, but
right?
you'll spend
They're
more
they're
money.
they're going to want some repayment in that, and at the end of the day,
Sure.
Iran's entire existence at this point really boils down to the fact, and not existence, but like relevance in the world stage
Oil money.
boils down to the fact that they have that oil money. And
Okay.
if you invite the United States in, the United States isn't going to
Strings
leave, and
attached for sure.
we're gonna
Sure.
the richness of that oil money should go to the fucking Iranian people. The entire
Okay.
region that
So I
Mossadegh
agree with that.
nationalized the Iranian oil supply in the
I just
1953
think we're
coup
reluctant to
was
think that the
because
United States is going to do this out of the goodness of our hearts. There's going to be strings
It's
attached.
both.
absolutely
It's both.
the
I
entire
don't know
reason
if
that
it's
Iran
both. We are
nationalized
very selfish. Americans are so selfish. So
the entire
I think
reason
it's
that
both. I
Iran
think it's both.
nationalized its oil production was because in 1953, BP's prior name, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Production Company or whatever, they were promised contractedly supposed to give 16% of their profits back to the Iranian people.
they
And they
try
didn't.
and just look at the
They
books.
didn't do it, and they didn't even allow Iran to look at their books. And so Mossadegh responded by saying, "Fuck it, then we're going to take all the oil and we're going to do it ourselves." And their production went from
I love that you brought this up.
200
I love
million
that you brought.
50 per oil barrel production down to 10 million over a
We
year.
want, and I think that we're
So
saying we want the best for the
If
Iranian
America comes
people
in,
too, but
they're
we
not leaving.
know,
We're going to take all that
yeah,
oil
we
money. You guys are
know
going to
the other side of the
it's going to be
coin.
worse.
Yeah,
It's going to be worse.
okay, so let me spill some truth on that. Mossadegh is a traitor to the Iranian people because he did not actually nationalize the oil. He governmentized the oil. The oil became subsidized, meaning if you're nationalizing a resource, 100% of that, the profits and the income from that resource should either go directly to the people of your country, whatever country XYZ,
To the government.
or
Goes to the government.
well, no, or invested for the profit of your country in terms of infrastructure, income to the people, which ultimately is supposed to be. However, that's not what he ended up happening. He ended up governmentizing it, and that money never went to this day never went to the pocket of people. And the narrative that the Marxists and communists that created from that is, oh no, it's not. Mossadegh was a hero. He was not a hero. He was a traitor to the Iranian people. I have so
you're
much
saying that he
mountain
was
of evidence.
you're saying he was a traitor because while he may have said that he was going to nationalize oil and give it back to Iranians, in fact, it never did make it to the Iranians. So then where did it go?
It went to the government, and the people who run the government
But
allocated and subsidized it, not to the benefit of Iranian people.
but he
But
was taken out of power within a year of nationalizing it. So he never really
and
had
let me tell you how. Let me
the
tell you
ability
how.
but he never really had the ability to spend it though. Like how it gets spent isn't up to him if he's no longer in power.
He's no longer in power, but the structure in which he put in place in terms of the contract negotiations and the legal proceedings that go into the process of production, going all the way to actual money, currency going into the pockets of Iranian people, were structured in a way where the Iranian people obviously weren't the decision makers, but the decision makers on how to get the money should be allocated were not going to the pockets of Iranian people. The king, the monarchy in Iran, the king initially actually supported Mossadegh, but he didn't nationalize it. He made it into a government slash state.
Wait. Did
So
you say
that
the monarchy supported Mossadegh?
initially, yes, this is in the books. This is in history. The monarchy initially actually supported Mossadegh because he went to the king and he said, "I want this to be nationalized." The king also wanted to nationalize the oil resource, but not in the way that Mossadegh wanted to. He wanted to nationalize it in a way that the Iranian people benefit from it. So then wasn't being directly allocated because and then so this has not changed since then. The USA actually, and I have evidence for this. So at that time, USA had good relationships with Iran
Well,
during the Truman years.
it was the only
Okay.
relationship because there was such an anti-Britain fervor in Iran, correct? So it was
So yeah. So there was a point in time where the US actually tried to prevent British intervention. Um, so there was good relationship, but Mossadegh didn't want. The proper way of saying his name is Mossadegh, but I don't want to be so nitpicky, but he didn't want to negotiate with the USA because he had British interests. He had his political posturing was more on the side of the British. Mossadegh wasn't democratically elected, first of all. He was not democratically elected. He intentionally wanted to set up the oil policy in such a way and he actually requested to dissolve the parliament.
I did
In
see
what
that. I did see
democratic
that he did want to dissolve the parliament, but only after he heard of plots against him, correct?
Well, yeah, because he wasn't truly nationalizing the oil. He got rid of the parliament, and once he got rid of the parliament, at the time, the legal laws in Iran allowed the monarch to depose somebody who dissolves in the scenario where you dissolve the parliament. First of all, in what democratic society do you dissolve a parliament? Even if you believe that they're plotting against you, that's not democratic to dissolve a parliament. The parliament is composed of many representatives from many different states inside of your country. So this narrative that Mossadegh was a hero and he was like, all of that is just a bullshit lie since then. And one of the reasons that actually ties into a time in the US in the 90s, but the U.S. actually tried to appease the Iranian government through oil negotiations, using a reference point of the era of Mossadegh, saying that uh, because this was a mishap and Mossadegh was a hero, we need to rekindle our relationship. That's a completely different conversation. But if you
Is Iran Wire, is that a source that you use, Iran Wire?
Iran wires, they don't always get it wrong. They've many times have guests that show up that are representative of the Iranian government.
Well,
So that I don't necessarily.
so you're saying
Yeah,
50-50.
Iran International is a good source. Iran International is a good source because they report on the facts. And Iran Wire sometimes gets it right, but not well, majority of the time. I've seen guests that they've hosted from the Iranian government with the IRGC flag. But going back to the Mossadegh, so the CIA actually had a small part in coordinating the coup related
and
to Mossadegh
MI6
and
and
MI6.
Mossad.
Yep. And but Mossadegh also had Islamist tendencies. He wasn't like a purist of Islam, but he had Islamist tendencies.
Yeah,
The
because
CIA,
go ahead. Go ahead.
so the CIA had this narrative that towards the end of the 60s to show an example of that they won, that they did something, and the reason they were doing that is because of the Bay of Pigs. They had a loss in the whole Bay of Pigs situation with Cuba, so they had to use the Mossadegh story to come out into the public and say, "Hey, look, but we had a win with the whole Mossadegh situation." But the reality of the fact is, if you're a populist and you're saying I'm elected, first of all, you're not democratically elected. You have to be democratically elected to become the minister, and if you become the minister and now you're dissolving the parliament that's elected by the people, that's not democratic. So if we're going to go based on democratic principles, and you're not truly nationalizing the oil, then therefore Mossadegh's not a
I
hero.
think
It's a
that
story that they've
Randall,
sold.
I th-
What did the Bay of Pigs have to do with anything? I'm sorry.
So we in the era that the Bay of Pigs was happening, the what was the net result of the Bay of Pigs as related to Cuba? It was a loss for the U.S.
Yeah,
We
a bunch
didn't.
of Cuban Americans lost their
So
lives, and with CIA
yeah,
refused to have flyovers. People used it as a
exactly.
reason for
But
why
they
JFK
had
was
to have a
assassinated.
win story. They had to have a win story.
so you're
So
saying
they
they leaked the
added this whole.
Ajax story. They leaked it to say,
Maybe not the leaking part. That's I'm not gonna. I don't know
That
if
was
they
these are
leaked or not.
these moments are
But
years separated.
right, he's saying that
they
later
are in the same
in the
era.
same
No,
era,
they are in the same.
he's saying that they
They're
essentially used it as propaganda to
as a
get a
win
win
story, like as a.
during the
Yeah,
Cold
we
War.
won. We did this. We lost in this Bay of Pigs thing. But hey, guys, look at this thing. We're in Mossadegh's era. We were able to negotiate these contracts
He was in
and
house arrest by the time that this Bay of Pigs happened.
But the house arrest, sure, but the house arrest was initiated by the Shah, and the reason it was initiated is because in any scenario in the legal structure of Iran at that time, if you are the prime minister and you dissolve the parliament, that allows the Shah so he actually came out and said there was a statement. He said he made a statement that the Shah doesn't matter. I'm more powerful than the Shah. I don't
So
care.
then
I can do
let's
whatever I want.
talk about the Shah
So
then.
Hold on, hold on. No, I'm confused. I'm confused. The CIA participated in the overthrowing of Mossadegh in 1953,
Yes.
and then you're saying in 1961, in order to
they
make a
said they
feel-good story,
participated. Their
after the Bay of Pigs
participation.
invasion failed in 1961, the CIA was like, "Yeah, we failed in Bay of Pigs, but God, we got Mossadegh out 7 years ago."
The CIA was
That's what happened.
participating in a
And guess what? And guess
pro-communist
what? The,
role. That's what they were doing.
yes, and that is also true. That is also
Yeah,
true.
that's what we were
But
really. That's the only reason the United States got involved is
And
that
you
we thought
know what
that Iran would fall into the
people
sphere of
but
communism.
you
what
know
I'm
what
saying is
people in
the
Iran
level
really
of
got the
involvement
boot
isn't
was
as
the
much as
communists. Every
the Iranian people have been getting screwed over for 1400 years. And right now, if you're looking at it from a perspective of a person that's living in Iran, they want to be free. They have for 47 years done everything in their power to peacefully protest their government, and every single time they've been killed and raped.
They shouldn't
So
peacefully protest
Iranians,
anymore.
this is the highlight of this entire conversation today. Iranians inside and outside of Iran are celebrating these strikes.
so
There are
then
countless videos coming out. They're like, hell yeah, get them. You know why? Because when somebody's killing you with a machine gun and you can't do shit, then you're happy to get some kind of help. Whoever it is. It could be, in this case, it's Israel and the US. And yes, Israel and the US will have some interest through investments for Iran. But guess what? In a secular Iran where there is separation of church and state, in this case, separation of religion and state, because Iran has multiple religions, it's going to be good for Iranian people because you have, so what that if the US gets a benefit out of it? Guess what? You as an American, you're going to get a benefit out of it because you're getting investment money that we're making in Iran. Iranian people benefit
not
from
if
it.
it doesn't go into Donald
I
Trump's
don't think
It's a
I
private
will
account.
ever
stipulation.
see a benefit from it
Maybe not. Hold
whatsoever
on. Maybe not. It's a
in any
stipulation. But
way,
what I'm
shape, or
saying
form.
is, if you're an Iranian, you're not going to sit there and say, okay, we're going to go for 47 more years. We're going to go and see if we can negotiate with these guys that are shooting us and raping
Here's
us.
what
So
we
you
get.
really, like, you have to look at
hold
it.
on.
A lot
Here's
of this
what
conversation prior to 2006 involvement in Iraq, and it's the same shit,
here's
man.
what we get as Americans, right? This is what we always
I
get.
want
This is what we always get as Americans. We do have
nation building, want to do regime change, all that. But
have
Iran is different.
we have a little bit more. We do have freedoms that other places don't have, right? We do have that. But I would say, right, like when we're talking about American blood for the Iranians, right, like that is, you could say that's the price that we're going to pay, and it's the price that America continues to pay. And so when we talk about what the blood is being spilled for, which is for a democratic Iran, right? So the choices that Iran has right now, right? We've seen the Shah Prince in exile, Pahlavi, correct? We've seen
Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. Yes.
Reza Pahlavi, and we've also seen the opposition right now, Maryam Rajavi, right? Like, and like we go back to the Shah era,
Sure.
you can make the argument that people weren't happy with that, right? 50% or more of Iranians lived in poverty. At one point, 5,000 political prisoners and up to 10,000 secret police, right? And you could make the argument.
Yeah, the Savak, right?
The Savak. I have a whole lot to talk about that.
So what do you think? Like, are those good options for the Iranian people?
No, they're not. The MEK is not. MEK is a Islamist terrorist Marxist group that since 1972, the bombings of Tehran, they bombed the U.S. Information Service Office, the Iran,
This is the
Iran
MEK you're saying?
MEK, they're an Islamist Marxist group that are not popular, factually not popular in Iran. They believe in the Maryam Rajavi, who is an Islamist, and her husband is like seen as this godlike figure. They've already elected her as a president. So how is that even democratic? How are they going to go to Iran? How are they going to say this is already? They're going to go to Iran and say this is already the president. They made their money siding with the Arab side of the house with Saddam Hussein killing Iranians. This is factual in history. 1973, they did assassinations in Tehran. 1975, they assassinated U.S. officers. 1976, they murdered U.S. civilians. two Rockwell International employees in Tehran. 1979, they killed Americans for in support of the embassy, the group that claimed responsibility for the murder of a Texaco executive.
Sadly, it's not
1980.
controversial though to be someone who's killed an American and be a United States
Well, they've
leader.
also
After
killed
Donald
hundreds of
Trump
thousands
has
of Iranians.
yeah,
Well,
but
they've also
After Donald Trump has the former leader of Al Qaeda in and sprays him with perfume, and he's the president of Syria, and he says he's a great guy, he's awesome. That's the problem. Is that doesn't really move
But we're
the
not we're
dial
not
point a
comparing
lot.
him. No, we're not comparing him to Donald Trump. I'm saying you're trying to make a case that they're a notable opposition. They are an opposition, but they have no popularity within the Iranians in Iran and the Iranian diaspora at large because of the hundreds of thousands of Iranians they have killed. What I'm listing for you. So in the late Iran-Iraq war, they had operations siding with Saddam Hussein, who was attacking Iranians,
So
right?
her movement says it supports democracy, women's rights, separation of church, free elections, fair elections, abolishing the death penalty. Are those not
That is her
goals that
website, but in practice, what I'm saying is, yes, I've seen the website, that's what her website claims,
her
but
10-point plan?
if you look at the history of what her group has done, they're murderers, they're
Yeah,
terrorists.
I understand
would you
I
say
So
understand the
that they're
history of it, but
propping
like you
up
could
so
hold on, let's say this. Would you say that the Islamists, so this faction group is say propping up uh
they're cult.
they're propping up a woman, maybe you could say in the same way that the Trump administration has propped up someone like Kristi Noem or Caroline Levitt, right? To be like a figure, to be like this
No, this is not the
false,
same
to be
because
this
this is
false face of the organization, essentially want,
well, no, she's not a false
do they
face.
want her to, well, but she's a woman though. So do they
So what?
inherently, but
So
in the Islamic world, right, a woman can't like, can she have power or not?
she has power within her
Would you
people. What I'm
say
saying
that,
is, but she has power by way because her husband is Masoud Rajavi.
right? So
Masoud
then,
Rajavi
is she being
is
propped up kind of as this face, but really the
no,
her
because she
husband's
power
has
is
also
the
executive power.
husband?
No, because she has executive power.
her
So
husband's
this
been missing for like 20 years. He's dead,
uh
right? He's not
maybe not. Yeah, that's a different conversation,
he's
honestly.
well,
But
like I'm
if
just
you
trying to say
look
it's
at
not really
I
fair to say
encourage
like
you
her husband's
to
someone and that's where her power comes from. Her husband has been on the political sphere for 25
sure,
years and
but in
he's
the
dead.
case of propping someone up, that other person has to be there to prop them up, right? That other
And if
person
he's
has
not
to
there because he's
continually
missing,
advocate.
then he's not there.
Right, but the propagate the origin of it, I mean, it's coming from somewhere, right? It's not like she woke up one morning and she's like the leader. But what I'm saying is you have to go online and look at MEK's videos. They're a cult. They're like in this big warehouse. They all show up, come right up
Even
to her and her husband, and
even with her
they
siding with Saddam Hussein, that was in the Iraq-Afghanistan war, right?
sure, but they killed
So, but
hundreds of thousands of Iranians. No, that was in the
Iranians, but
Iran-Iraq
those
war.
yeah,
No, the Iran-Iraq war.
I said the wrong word. The Iraq war, and they killed thousands of Iranians, correct?
Yes, they
But
helped
the
Saddam
Iranians
Hussein.
would have been support, but those yeah, but they helped Saddam Hussein in a war against the Islamic regime of Iran.
Ah, no, because see, that's another misconception narrative. That war, so Saddam actually invaded Iranian soil and
Hmm.
Iran and killed a lot of Iranians, and many Iranians at that time were not savvy as to how terrible this current regime is. In their minds, in that period of time, in the context of that time, they wanted to defend their country. And this was a very known fact. So when they saw these group of Iranians under Maryam Rajavi's leadership and her husband's leadership in the MEK siding with Saddam Hussein, they were universally seen. This was not a
But
IRGC
just
versus Iraq
a
issue.
couple minutes ago, though, just a couple minutes ago, you were saying it doesn't matter where that support comes from as long as it helps free the people of Iran. So if she was
No, no, no,
siding
no,
with
no, no,
Saddam
because
Hussein, like it doesn't because it doesn't matter where that
sure,
support comes from. If she's
sure.
siding with Saddam Hussein against the Islamic regime of
But
Iran, wouldn't
she
that make
wasn't
her a good
siding
figure?
with them. Sure, but we so okay, so Randall, we have to look at it on the context and framework of a democracy, right?
Hmm.
If you're coming to me and say, "Hey, Keya, I'm liberating you, and once you're liberated, I I want the ideal to be a democratic body of governing." I'm with you there. But if you come to me and say, "Hey, I'm liberating you, but then after I liberate you, I'm going to be your next monarch. I'm going to be your next totalitarian regime, then I'm not there with you. And this is the case with
That's my
Maryam
point.
Rajavi.
That's
Well,
my
this
point,
is
though.
the case with Maryam Rajavi.
If America helps liberate you guys, and America, which don't get me wrong, I hope you guys are, I don't know you guys, but I hope Iran is liberated. I'm not talking like I think they should stay. I want to support anything like that.
Sure.
But just the involvement of the United States in that, we would then like help install that next leader. You know, what I mean?
If you
We would have to
install
then
the
stay
next
around to
leader,
help. We would have to help stay around to make sure those elections happen. You know what I mean? And
and if
and
it's
then we'd
not,
have to stay around
and
to
I
help enforce that election after it
sure, and
wins.
I will promise you, I will sign my name in blood that if that is not the case, if Iran doesn't transition to a democracy, I hereby pronounce that I will protest that and I will be against that. But I am that confident that that's not going to happen. But I want to go back to what you were talking about Maryam Rajavi. Maryam Rajavi, you know where she came from. Their group actually got kicked out by the Islamist regime. They were competing with the Islamist regime to become the totalitarian dictatorship that never was.
They were the
So the
communist
Iranian
side of
people
it,
not
right?
only saw them,
Yeah, they were the
sorry,
communist side of it.
of course they're Marxists. So the MEK is a Marxist
There's a
Islam.
difference between communist and Marxist, though.
Well, far left. If you go far enough in the left, who do you end up
Well,
with?
then, but let's say
Yeah,
this
but if
too,
you
though,
but
with
if
the
you if
left,
you were
the communists.
if you're a conservative, that
I'm
doesn't
not
mean you're a
saying the left.
fascist.
I'm not saying left is bad. All left is
I
bad.
don't
That's
want
not
to
my
be a
narrative.
communist
I
sympathizer
hope you
too
don't think.
much, but if we look at the history of Iran, the group that was continually faced persecution no matter what group was in power was the communists,
Mhm.
right? They were
Was the left? No, was the
okay,
left.
the
Was
left
the There's a
leaning,
difference.
the le-
There's a difference.
so, but in the 50s, there wasn't much of a distinction made between the left and the communists, right? Those were the people who
N-
essentially helped Mossadegh rise to power. And then
Not necessarily
Khomeini
no,
shuts
because if you
down
look,
the protests. And then when the communists come and protest again against Mossadegh, Khomeini decides not to get
It's
involved.
it's important to
so
include in this turn when we're talking about the communists too that the USSR hadn't fallen yet, so it was actually like a seen boogeyman kind of threat
that
in
is
this. Well,
correct.
we're looking
Actually,
at it from a
Randall,
time for after the USSR is gone and
but it's
communism
important.
isn't as much of a
What
world
you
threat.
just said. So what you said is correct, and actually, the evidence of that, Iran actually had good relation. There's this narrative that says, oh well, Iran only had good relationships with UK and the US at the time. Almost, I think that's actually not true.
Yeah, no,
There's
they
They
were
records.
played both sides against
go
each
ahead.
other.
They played. Yeah,
They were
sure.
surrounded
You could
they
say.
had all sides. They were surrounded by
But
bigger
if you look at the trade relations, many of the companies were Russian inside of Iran. If you look at the trade relations
yeah,
during the Truman era, it wasn't as if, because the CIA has this narrative of like,
Soviet, not Russian. But yes.
well, what we know to be
Yes.
known today. I mean, actually, since you brought that up, there's actually Russia has the equivalent of about $5 billion of estimated annual trade and economic value with Iran currently.
It's our biggest
If you
trade partner,
consider
right?
one, I don't know if it's the biggest trade partner, but the like China has about 30 to 40 billion, and they're in the hopes that once this regime goes away, they renegotiate those contracts because the current Iranian regime,
And
uh,
and that's
it,
my point right there.
yeah,
That right there. With that they after this regime falls apart, they're in the hopes that they'll renegotiate their contract
they
for
have to,
economic
they have
oil.
to
So right there.
renegotiate it.
So how do you make sure that foreign governments don't control the oil production and the oil sale in Iran? How do you make
I
sure
love
that it
that you brought that
stays
up. I love that you brought that up.
nationalized
So those
in
contracts, yeah,
because
so those
any
contracts are
any
not
country
in oil. They're not in majority in oil. Let's talk about this. So the
it's in
OPEC.
natural liquid gas and other stuff as well.
Well, the natural liquid gas in the west of Iran hasn't been drilled and productionized. I don't know what the word is.
They don't have the infrastructure yet to like
Commoditized.
So the
commercialize it. Yeah.
infrastructure, so the reserves are there, much like how the U.S. has the biggest oil reserves in the world, but they just haven't exploited it to the level of like, let's say, like a company like Saudi Arabia, right? But the OPEC, right? So the organization that is composed of all the producers of oil in the Middle East, as it stands right now, they contribute to about 30% of the oil flow trade
Hmm.
globally. Out
Yep.
of that 30%, Iran is in the vast minority of that. So this narrative of like Iranian oil, oh my God, it's all about the oil, complete fallacy. first of all, the refineries that are in south of Iran, did you know that there's still the same general infrastructure that from the 1979, predating the Shah?
Like they haven't
That doesn't
Do you
surprise
upgraded
me.
realize
anything.
they have
That
not?
doesn't
They
surprise
have
me because
not. They,
all of those were built way outside BP and money. None of that was built with the infrastructure of what you have from
well,
actually
even
coming
if you
out of
take,
Iran. It was
yeah,
all
well,
built from the
even if
Anglo-Iranian oil company. None of it was built
you
by them.
take that infrastructure needs maintenance and upgrades, and all this
Ir-
regime has not done that. They have like one of the,
Iran is currently fifth in world oil production.
if so
United States,
where is that
Russia,
source
Saudi
from?
Arabia. United States, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Canada. It's world
Yeah.
sourced
And
from
this is
world
actually the
leaders,
biggest
oil,
argument
Rio Tinto.
against this is the biggest argument against why is people are saying like, oh, like US is doing that so they can take the oil money. That's not true if you look at the numbers and if you look at the position. The US actually has the most oil. Why the hell would it want to go and like what I'm trying to say is if the United States wants to exploit the oil, which is never going to happen, actually. It's never going. I'd sign my name in blood on
Just,
that. They may have
just for
investment
quick,
companies to upgrade it, but you have to follow the money. It has to be worth the money. If every
just
$10
to,
that you give me, go ahead, go.
just for some quick reference, the Iran has the third largest untapped oil reserves in the world, behind Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, and
And
has they're fifth in oil production in the world. They also, of their trade data, 47% of their exports is oil. It's
okay,
their
and where's that? First of
largest
all, where's that
trade
trade data
destination.
coming from? The current Iranian government, who has no legitimacy, who inflates all their numbers. First of all, second of all, the production of that oil needs to be upgraded. Just because you're pulling out a big amount of oil doesn't mean the quality of that oil. The oil that I give you has to have the quality. Just because I'm giving you a barrel, that barrel needs to have good quality. You have to invest in your infrastructure.
I'm not even talking about any of that. What I'm talking about is that's going to be the controlling deciding factor for why these other countries get involved in your guys' revolution. And if the
So,
United
so,
States is
so
going to get involved in it, we're going to get involved in it to rape your oil. Like that's just a fact.
I don't.
The worst thing too,
Obviously,
if Israel gets
I think
involved in
what
it, I
Kia
think
is
Israel's getting
saying,
involved for land
I
extension.
think what Kia is saying is that the Iranians aren't benefiting from the sale of that oil right now. So if some of that power and money gets brokered over to foreign countries that want to who want to help, then I think that Kia is saying
they're
that
going to
that's
see it
a
as an
sacrifice
investment.
that they're willing to make for the freedom of the people.
It's going to be seen as an investment, and what I'm saying is like you have to spend a lot of money to actually bring it to the level of like what I'm saying is like if I'm giving you $10, but out of that $10 you yourself have to spend $8 to actually
Yeah,
spend.
I get producing crude
Right.
oil and changing it into gasoline. I understand all that, but all
And
that
that takes
infrastructure
time
exists.
and infrastructure. You don't just do it overnight, right? And not only that, the fact that the United States is sitting on the biggest, largest untapped oil reserve in the world, it just doesn't make
I
economic
don't think
sense
we
to go
are.
and say,
I don't think that the United States
"No,
is.
we
I
are,
think we're like 10th or
we are.
so. Number one is
We
Venezuela.
we have the world's largest untapped like the aggregation of natural resources, not just oil. The United States has the most amount of any other country by far. It's not even close.
So let's just say
Okay.
that let's say the
But I'm
oil's a
saying
factor, but it's not the only factor.
it's
So
one of the many factors.
what's it's
What I'm saying is like Iran is so far behind in everything that any investment is a good investment because you're going to be one of the first to invest in it. You're going to be profitizing it. Startups, technology, it's not just oil, guys. It's internet infrastructure. It's education. You're going to see. It's just so much of every facet of life has to be fixed that anybody who's going to invest in Iran is going to see a return on
so
investment,
then
and
let's
therefore,
go ahead, Q.
yeah, therefore Iranian people are going to benefit. To your talking point about the MEK,
We're 11th overall in oil production or reserves. Sorry,
no,
I just
not
looked at it.
just
It took me a
oil.
while to find it.
So it's not just oil, right? I'm talking about all natural resources, right? Overall natural resources. That includes
That's completely on like all natural resources, dude. Russia's
well
gonna win it
because
because they're the biggest country
well
in the
no,
world.
because if you're saying no, it is relevant because if you're saying that we're going to be the first at that hill of resources, it's not just oil, right? It's it's
No,
anything.
my point of saying this whole thing, the whole reason I bring all this up is because Iran is a country that's situated on top of a gold mine, and they're fighting
Yes,
over
yes,
who has leadership, right? They're fighting over the leadership, right?
sure,
So if you're sitting on top of if this was Iceland and there was no strategic oil reserves, this situation would be a lot easier to figure out. That's my point.
sure.
But because they're sitting on a literal gold mine,
Black
that whoever
gold.
helps them in this situation is expects that
They're
as
going
a
to
return.
benefit immensely. Absolutely,
But they
but
shouldn't.
if
That's the
you
thing. That they shouldn't. That belongs to
well,
the Iranian
they
people
shouldn't.
to sell off as Iranian
And I
oil.
think
I
that's
think
where the
it's not
argument
as
with Maryam Rajavi is that I think that what we've
she'll never come to power. She'll never come to
but the
power. Iranian people
argument
hate
the
them.
argument is
Uh,
that with her is that you don't need a broker with the US or Israel, is that
But you do because U.S. Israel are already there right now. So how are you not going to broker with them?
well, and that's where we
You
Yeah,
can't
but
even
can't
that's
put
the
the
broker with
lid
problem.
them.
Is
back
You
that
don't
on the
even.
that's
box.
illegal. But that's the problem. They are there now, and no one will ever dispute that. But that's the problem is that we shouldn't be in that we don't think that the U.S. should be involved, or I don't think. I don't want to speak for John. I just don't think that the U.S. should be involved, and I definitely don't think Israel should be involved. Like you said multiple times during this conversation that they chant death to America, they chant death to Israel. So does North Korea. Are we going to go to war with North Korea tomorrow? Like that doesn't
Except
it
that
doesn't move the dial for me. Like they
it
can say whatever
well,
they want in their own country, but
I
until they
mean,
start
so
sending
there's two
missiles to
things.
America, then it's different, you
They
know?
well, it's okay. So they have been doing that. That's what I'm saying. They've been producing those.
They
These are
sent missiles to
facts.
America?
They haven't sent missiles to America. They've been producing missiles to obliterate Israel and America. This is a fact. But
Yeah,
because Donald Trump or Fox
producing
News says it,
producing
you
them
guys
and
say, "Oh,
sending them
well,
are
no, it's
completely different.
bullshit." Huh?
Because like we've been producing and housing missiles all over the world for years. Like the Cold
But
War,
have we been
we almost
using
went to
them? But have we been
and
using them?
there's the trap of what I'm saying. So has Iran been sending missiles to the United States and been using them?
They've been exporting missiles that have
So no, they haven't been. I'm not
they
trying to be a
have been.
dick about this.
No, no, you're not. I don't see you as a dick. This is a political
I'm
discourse.
just
But
saying
what I'm saying is,
when the threat of why people are in from the United States are in Iran right now is because of nuclear the scare of thermonuclear war because they're trying to build
it's not
missiles.
a scare though. They're at 60% enrichment, Randall.
Who
That's
said
not
that?
far.
Who said that though?
Their own numbers, their own
No. Who said that though? Because like when I bring up
the
something that has to do with
the
Iran, you immediately
IAEA
question about where it comes from.
IAEA, international agency for that has to do that regulates regulating body of weapons and warfare. That
Those
measures.
people were allowed. So those people were allowed into the country, and they were allowed to show that they're stockpiling it because
They were allowed. No, hold on. They were allowed into the country. They put the seal where you are not allowed to break that seal to enrich beyond, uh, from my understanding, 30%, all the way up to 60%. And they broke the seal. And after they broke the seal, they didn't allow them to come inside. Can you tell me what other
was that
reason that
was that before
what
or after they pulled out of Obama's agreement in 2018? That was after 2018.
they pulled out of they pulled out of agreement.
during Trump's
By
first
they, we're
term.
talking about the United States pulled out of
Yeah,
the agreement, not Iran. They were complicit with the
yeah, they
agreement, and they
pulled
were
out of it.
letting in people to check
Because
their weapons.
it was after that.
It was
It was
okay. So
after.
then that's Donald Trump's fault. That's 100% Donald Trump's
It's
fault
not a
because
fault if they don't agree to allow
if they
somebody to
weren't
inspect.
if they weren't doing it before when they were under inspection during the Biden administration,
They
and then
were
we
doing
pulled
it
out of an
before.
agreement,
No, they
but
were
it was
doing it.
you can't show that though because it wasn't
I can
founded
show that. No,
by
I can show that. It's a
please
fact. I'll
because
send you.
it wasn't found by the UN saying that they broke any sort of enrichment
Okay,
limits.
we need to talk about
Okay,
the other people who people are the Iranians are supporting here
I'll
and
send you the resource. That's
flying the
actually
flag, right? The old Persian flag from the Shah era. So the Shah seems like someone that the West definitely wants. Do the Iranian people want the Shah again?
so
What's the
Iranian
support
people. So
there?
Iranian people. Yeah, so majority of Iranian people inside or outside of Iran, factually, from my observation, from what I can see online, from what I see on the street, they want the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi to transition them into a democracy. He himself has come out and said, I do not want to be a monarch for two reasons. One, because he's a constant advocate of democracy. Now, that could be in the form of a parliamentary monarchy, where the monarch is just somebody who does not have executive powers and just a symbol of culture and history, just much so as the British government is, or it could be a democratic republic, which he himself has many times been cited to advocate for, all over his website, and he has 4 different things. Now you might say, well, but then what's the difference between this guy and Maryam Rajavi? The difference is that he has killed 0 people, where Maryam Rajavi and her cult have killed hundreds of thousands of
Well,
Iranians.
how many people
Okay,
does his father's regime kill though, or displace or
but
torture?
why does his father matter? Why
Because
it's
that's
like
his
saying
because that's his claim to power. Is through
no, it's
like,
not. No, it's
well,
not, because
he's the exiled crown prince. That's his definitely his claim
that
to
is
power.
historic fact.
Otherwise he's just Rajavi. He's not
Sure,
anything other
it's a
than.
historic fact, but it's also
So
like
his
saying
claim is through his father's legitimacy. So that's
no,
all
it's
I'm
not.
saying
No,
is
it's not. His claim, no, his claim, if you look at his website, if you look at his multiple interviews, he's actually never changed what he said since 30 years ago. Um, is that he wants to transition Iranian people into a form of democracy.
no,
His
no.
in
I'm
terms of
saying his claim to power. I
his
understand what his
claim
claim that he
to
wants to do. I get that.
power,
His
he
relevance in this situation is why.
Yeah, he wouldn't be anything if it
But
wasn't for his
pause it.
lineage.
he's no, 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 no.
Wait.
He's
I
known
want pause, pause,
for
pause, 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 pause. Could you explain his relevance to this situation without mentioning his father?
so it's yes, because of what he's saying.
Well,
That's a
So
simple
that's
you're
as
not
that.
his
saying, hold
relevance to the
on, what he's
situation.
saying,
Anyone can
yes,
say something.
I
I'm
know
saying
what
his
both
relevance to the
I know
situation.
what both of you are saying, but
So
Kia, what you're
so
saying is that
let
he's
me
expanded upon. So yes, he comes from royal blood, but he's expanded upon his father's ideas. Or
no, that is not
he
true.
has new
So he is
ideas.
no, that is also not
Okay,
true.
so he is a
Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi is known for who he is because of history, right? Because he's the son of the Shah. But it is incorrect and inaccurate and unfair and bad journalism to say that it is because of his father that he has the content of what he's saying is gaining him that power. What's gaining him his power is what he's saying and what he's done in the
okay.
past,
So what
not
is
for
it?
what
So
he's
let's
known for. It's like it's as if you want to run for president, whoever, like let's say John, like, hey John, you want to run for president? Okay, great. I'm going to listen into what you have to say and what your policies are. I'm not going to you might be known to me because of who your father is. Maybe your father was a Kennedy, and because your father was a Kennedy, I know who you are. Does that give you power? You can argue that
might
it
get me a
gives you
bullet to the head.
attention.
It gets you relevance.
It
It gets
gives
you
you
carried in the
attention, but it
media.
doesn't give you power. What gives you power
That's
is what
power. Power is attention. That's what I'm saying. Like anyone could say the things
it's
he's saying.
good marketing. I can agree with you
At
there.
the
It's
end of the
good
day,
marketing.
why wouldn't it just be the UN doing the same thing? If because like he wants to be in charge for 6 months so he can institute democratic elections, which great. Why can't the UN be in charge for 6 months while they institute
Because
democratic
the
elections?
UN doesn't have
And he
Iranian
can even run
heritage.
as one of the
No,
head party
because
leaders.
the UN doesn't have Iranian heritage. Why would UN, who has nothing Iranian, his
Because
here's
a
criticism.
third party, non-related person to the situation. They're not. They wouldn't have any finger to put on.
There will be once Iran has a referendum, which what Iranian people want. I'm not going to say which one is better because I'm not. Who am I to say? I'm not never going to live in Iran.
Okay,
I just want Iran.
so time out.
I just want Iranian people.
Time out. So I think what I think Randall's trying to say is that if the referendum happens and it's not it's not Pahlavi who is chosen, then what happens to Pahlavi?
I don't know. We
Yeah, I
don't know
don't
the
know
answer
either.
to that.
I'm saying if
But
the
it's not
referendum.
fair to just predict something that hasn't happened yet. Like it's not fair to say, well,
Same
oh
thing
my
with
God,
them
what if
building
he
missiles
becomes
and say they're trying to kill the United States. That hasn't happened yet.
that it hasn't happened yet, but there's a difference because there's factual evidence.
Good.
What I'm
Okay, go
saying
ahead.
is that if Iran is like you're saying, Iran's sitting there with a bunch of missiles, they're stockpiling missiles, they're building armaments, they're saying fuck the United States. Your argument is, well, then we should take them out. We should fuck them. But that's against international law unless you have
So
a
that's correct. That's correct, but that's
declaration
not
of war by our Congress, which
that
we
is
don't have.
I am with you there, and that is correct. However, it's not all what I'm saying. They also have a track record of doing some of those things. They have killed
How many Americans has Iran killed?
many, like in the
Where
thousands.
where
As late
how
of
the Iranian regime?
I can I'll send you the proof for it, but I'll send you a list of links. They actually have a strong track record of blackmailing and extorting Americans. There was an FBI agent by the name of John Levin who who disappeared, they stole. There's Americans that they have taken and then turn around to the US and say, "Hey, give me multiple millions of dollars so I can give you your citizen back." They've done it to British people. They have done it to every democratic nation at large. So it's not hyperbole to say if a government is openly threatening and has for all these years and has acted on it. Now you might have an argument to say, and probably are correct to say, well, the scale of it doesn't justify. For me, any number, if you're threatening us and you're killing any number of us, that justifies it for me. And also there's a supplement to that, Randall. The supplement is that if a government is killing its own people, right? So if they killed 50,000 of their own people in 2 days, and they've also been chanting death to America, they've also killed US citizen and blackmailed US citizen, then how is it not
So you're
justified?
saying if they'll do
That
that to
is what I'm saying.
if they'll do that to their own
If they're
people,
killed their
think
own
about what
people
they'll do
and
to
they're
someone
telling you
else.
guys, "Fuck you guys," you don't think they're gonna do it when they have the means? And the posturing, the political posturing of the US is that we're not gonna let you get there for whatever it takes. And I'm fine with that. And the people of Iran are fine with that, as evidenced by the fact that Iranians all over the world, inside and outside of Iran, are thankful that, ironically, that their own country is being bombed because they just want this fucking government to go the fuck away.
So then here's a
So that's
question for you, Keya, and this is a bit of a hypothetical. Is an unintended consequence of the bombing, right? So let's say that, for instance,
a schoolgirl thing.
let's say that America falls into a theocracy, right? And China feels it in their best interest to bomb the United States in hopes that the people will rise up against the theocracy, right? I can tell you
If the US becomes a
if the
theocracy,
US were to somehow, in some dimension, some world, become a theocracy, and also
Hard to imagine,
I
right?
know, and a declining world power, right? So we're on the decline. We've become a theocracy. Our dollar is not the gold, not the world exchange
so same
currency
thing with
anymore.
Iran, and the tables are turned, basically.
Yeah, I can
So
say, for as an American, if China is bombing my countrymen, even though I am against my countrymen in what they're doing in the here and now,
The leadership of your
the
country.
leadership,
The
I
leadership.
don't
of your
know
country.
if
there's a difference.
I don't know if that's going to make me like China if they were to bomb the United States. I feel like that would push me more to the radical side. Wouldn't you say that there's going to be some Iranians that are pushed to the IRGC because of the
No, because
external bombing?
no, and I'll tell you why. Because this is the this is a it's not the best comparison because the Iranian government is a totalitarian dictatorship.
Right. We would
When
have
you're a
to
totalitarian,
we would have to America would have to decline further than we even believe that it has with theocracy.
yeah.
That's why
And if you guess what? If you're John in that scenario and you're calling for help, how would you feel if Iranian said, "Well, fuck you guys. Why? It's not my problem. I don't have my people are fine. Why should I come?" Wouldn't you want somebody to come save your ass? If you're dying and your people are getting raped and killed, you want other countries to just be like, "Oh, it's not my problem," when you literally are helpless. You have no other option of when for 47 years you've been negotiating and reforming and doing
well, I
everything
guess
you
there
can
are
in your
some
power to
slight
peacefully.
differences
It
too,
all
because we still
sounds
have the Second Amendment. So it is kind of a foreign
it all
concept.
Well, in
sounds
that scenario, you won't have the Second Amendment.
Right.
Oh, and actually, I love the fact that you brought that up. Did you know that this? And I don't think this is hyperbole. I honestly don't think. The people of the United States have more guns than the United States government does. I promise
There's
you that.
more guns
I
than people
promise
in
you
the
that.
United States.
There's more. The United States has more guns than anywhere else in the world in terms of the human population. Guess what? Iran doesn't have that. It's illegal to have guns. Yes, there are groups like you can make an argument like Kurdish fighters, all that, but even they don't have it to the
Not
scale of the people. You
constitutionally
can go to
protected.
It's illegal to have guns in Palestine, and yet Hamas still seems to have weapons.
well,
So
that's
they can
because
get weapons wherever.
well,
Like
yeah,
that's
well,
such
no,
a
because you got
small
to follow
fact.
the money. Well, because it's coming from
And
somewhere,
it came from
right?
Netanyahu.
No, it came from the Iranian government.
Iran
Yeah,
It came
it,
and
from
you
the
got to look.
Iran.
Iranian
You did
Islamist government.
absolutely, but you got to look into that, Kia.
I am, and I'm going to get to that. And
When
in
you're
that
looking at
scenario,
the two people you're having to try to help you, one of them is an outright boogeyman in this situation, and the other one has so many ulterior motives that are economically driven that it's going to end up terrible for the people of
and
Iran.
even if that's true,
It'll still be better, is
Randall,
what you're saying. Yeah.
it'll be better for the Iranian people because that's the level we're talking about. Like I know it's kind of ridiculous,
When
but
presented with
how
a chance to
ridiculous
change
do you
something,
have to be in Iran where they're bombing your country and you're thanking you for it? You know how? Because how much your government has fucked you off the ass for 47 years.
I
That's how.
personally don't believe they're thanking us for it.
They are, well, it's not a
I
belief.
don't.
I am in touch with them. I can see them in the news. I can see them outside of outside of Iran. Inside, there's 8 to 12 million Iranians that are living outside of Iran. Yeah, they're I promise you they're thankful. And if you don't see that, if that means you're not looking at you're looking at news
You're
sources
saying that the
that are biased.
regime, you're
I've spoken
saying
to
the
other.
regime is putting out the information to try and convince us otherwise. You're saying that they're
Yes,
trying to
I
tell
promise you.
us, they're trying to tell us that
Yes,
they're not happy, but you're saying that with sources on the
they
ground
are
that they
happy.
are.
They are thankful. Please watch
I've
Iran
spoken to quite a
International.
few Iranian Americans here, and several of them. One of them actually specifically, I was telling John about this when we were talking earlier this week.
It's going to be
Was
excited to
his
listen to the
grandfather
podcast,
was?
he said, right?
Yeah,
And I would
he
love
will
to
be
debate
listening.
them on this show. And I would
One of
love to debate them on this show if they're not
one of
thankful for the U.S.
his
taking out these people.
Well, I don't think you'll find a single person who's not thankful for them taking out these people. That there's a difference between thankful and taking them out and like wanting them to help them install their next form of government. Like again, I'm in a weird position myself because I'm not going to defend the former leadership of Iran. That'd be stupid for me to do that. But at the same time, I don't think that the United States should have acted with their strikes. I also am not even a firm believer that we knew that the leadership of Iran was going to be decapitated in these strikes. I think
We just
that
got
was
lucky.
it was fully no, it was
No.
fully the planning of Israel. Israel had been
They've been
tracking Al
tracking them.
Khamenei for
Yeah, they've been
fucking
tracking them
weeks. They
for
killed him with these
for
strikes, and
years.
then yeah, but
For
I
years.
just mean up to this moment. So like when it comes to like who killed him, you show me the reports that say it was a United strike that hit him. It was an Israeli one that hit him. So like I don't think when
It
we
is an
didn't
Israeli.
agree.
I'm not arguing about who
Yeah,
hit them.
I
I'm
don't think
saying
yeah, but that's important though because I don't think the Americans when we joined this effort to do strikes, I don't think we knew that was going to happen. And now
I
there's the
think we did
fallout that
have
we're all trying to
intelligence.
go, oh shit, well this isn't a war of regime change, even though the guy's
So
dead.
around between 1 to 3 weeks, I don't quote me on the exact timeline, that the strikes on Iran were initiated where the leader Ali Khamenei was taken out. Netanyahu made a trip to the US White House outside of schedule 1 week ahead of time. So what the contents of what was said in those meetings are said to be on how the context. So before that, the media wasn't reporting on the actual what's happening. Guys, if you're an Iranian and your family was machine gunned down, imagine I know
Yeah,
it's a terrible thing to
by
imagine,
any means necessary, get him out.
but
Yeah.
let's say I'll use myself so it's not a bad omen. Some people think it's a bad thing, but I'll use myself. If I'm an Iranian and living inside Iran, I went out there to say, hey, peacefully, please, thank you, pretty please. I don't want this government. I want a democratic, secular government. And either myself or someone I know, my daughter was machine gunned down. Then I go to the morgue and to retrieve her body, and they either kill me or they charge me for the money that they killed the bullet. The bullet that they used to kill my daughter, are charging me for it, or they will not give me back the body.
That's
Okay. And
disgusting.
then when I get my daughter's body back,
she is missing her sexual organs because they raped her and they don't want the doctor to conclude that she was raped before dying. Then, Randall, in that scenario, I will be thankful for anybody to come save me from this government.
Yeah, I understand. I get you. But
Okay?
the
That
same
can
type of
you
shit is
imagine
happening in
the
Israel with the
humiliation?
Palestinians right now.
And I'm with you. Listen,
So
if it's a
like helping, getting
humanitarian,
help from them, not okay. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't be
I'm
okay with it.
Randall is
look,
just saying.
it's
Randall's saying, "Be wary
I
of the
understand
enemy
the
of my
killer,
enemy
the
is my
enemy of my
friend. Be
enemy is not is
wary.
my
Be
enemy,
wary of
right?
that.
Or what do they say? They say the enemy of my friend is
The
my enemy.
enemy
What do
of
they
my
say?
The
The
enemy of
enemy.
your enemy
is my friend."
isn't always your friend. The enemy
I
of your enemy isn't
understand that,
always your friend.
and guess what? If we're talking a humanitarian, like we said in the beginning, what's human is everybody's human. We all have needs to be free, drink water, eat food, have money, education, healthcare, blah 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 blah. I'm not refuting that concept. All I'm saying is, in this particular scenario, there is no other alternative, and it already happened. So Iranians are thankful for it. And the media is constantly throwing shit on Donald Trump or Israel or US, not because of this particular issue, it seems. It seems that they're doing this because anything that this man has to say is bullshit. So because anything that this man has to say is bullshit, and because that's the narrative, and if they don't say that, they're going to lose audience and therefore profit money for CNN or who knows what else, then they're not going to support it. That's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is, if you're going to be humanitarian and you're going to say, hey, you're saving 90 million people that are being held up by a mafia. That's what it is. That the Islamist, this government is a mafia. They are a mafia. They're the largest scale mafia the world has ever seen. Then you then we need your support to say, okay, guys, for the moment, we want to free these group of people from dying and being raped. Can we please let that happen? Can we please let the media cover it? Which, by the way, I really appreciate you guys covering this. Big props to you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, we
But
appreciate you
guess
coming
what?
on too,
I'm there
Kip.
with you too. If you're showing me something else, like you mentioned, John, if the US, I mean, I'm American, obviously. I signed up to die for this country. I signed up to die for your rights because I believe I want to pay my dues to this country, right? I love America. I love America so much. Okay.
Love it
I
so much
burnt
you
the Iranian
burn the
I burnt
Iranian flag in
yeah,
Israel
I'm
or in
fucking
Iran. Yeah.
yeah, fucking 6 years old, bro.
Oh,
Okay.
so
So
badass.
that's gotta be something.
That's
Actually,
brass fucking balls, dude. Brass fucking balls,
they
man.
kicked me out of school that day and they never could let me come back. But
I think that
if that's
my argument would have a lot less teeth if the people doing the invading eventually there has to be boots on the ground if you're going to install some sort of
There will
elections.
be.
If you're going to be putting people on the ground, my argument would have way less teeth if those guys are wearing light blue and white helmets with the UN sticker on it.
well, the US, there's
And
6 US
because they're wearing
soldiers that died already, right?
there's eight now, and frankly, I think that number's not true. I think that it's
Oh,
Um,
yeah,
way
there
higher
are,
than eight.
yeah.
well, those are also my brothers and sisters, and if it's any
Yeah,
consolation,
absolutely.
we gave him the
They're
proper
they're frankly
respects in
more
our.
than they are mine because you're a badass who serves in the military. I'm just a
Oh, I'm not a
civilian.
badass. I just wanted to. I've always been a community person. Like the grandma around the corner knows me when she wants her groceries, or somebody has a flat that I don't know. I stop. I just felt like if I join the military, I can scale that impact up, and instead of like helping one person, I could hopefully help like. I have my own ideas, and it was also my grandfather's dying wish, to, so I'm trying to. But like,
Yes, you're a
it,
man of honor, Kia.
what I'm saying is, Randall, John, any American, if I saw you on the side of the road, I'm gonna stop. I'm not gonna say I just stopped. Oh, look at his car brand. Oh, Israel made the car, so fuck John. I'm not gonna help him fix his flat. I think it's there's so much more to that story, that maybe John borrowed the car from somebody that night. The net result is he's got a flat. Can we help him? And then when we help him and then he gets to where he wants to be, then we can now be in a position. Guess what? Guess what? If Iranian people, the 90 million Iranian people that are trying to have a democratic republic or some form of democracy, secular democracy, don't you think? Can I give you a really beautiful example that many Americans don't know? September 11th, 2001, the U.S. loses all those thousands of people because of
The 3,000, yeah.
the garbage, uh, the whatever the two planes, the garbage people that crashed those planes, right? Also ideology, right? Iranians in Iran lit up candles and cried for Americans. Many Iranians that were not regime supporters. There's videos of it. Please go to YouTube and type Iranians holding a vigil for Americans for September 11th. Iranians inside of Iran have held vigils for American soldiers. Outside of Iran, they continue to this day. If you look at Iranian protests, they have American flags flying in their own the ones that are anti-regime. I'm talking about the ones that you see recently. They have American flags. When you look at pro-Palestine protests, they do not have American flags. They chant against the U.S. Whereas the Iranians that are thankful for Americans to come save, they don't see, like, it may be the case where you guys think like they think it's just Donald Trump that's saving them. It's more about they see Americans saving them. If you are an American and you go to Iran right now, even before, like, let's say 10 years ago, if you went to Iran, as soon as they realize that you're American, they just love you. They just, I don't know what it is.
I would love
They
to visit
love the people of
Iran.
Iran.
It's a
The
place that I
people
want to
of
go for
Iran.
sure.
The people of Iran love Americans. They fucking love Americans.
Keya, thank you so much for coming on to the Knights of the Wrong Table. We really do appreciate having you, giving us perspective with Iranian affairs, because whether you agree with it or not, there's been actions that have been implemented to free the Iranian people. Motives aside, this is the world that we're living in now. So thank you for giving us a perspective of the Iranian people, of what we may not be seeing. So we do appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate your time, and I think when you do
man.
like you did today, you stand on the right side of history. I will promise you, Iranian people are very thankful for moments like this, where you, at the very least, you're hearing a perspective out, and at least giving it a forum where a lot of the media currently has just now decided to report on it, whereas 2 months
Let's
ago
hope
they
it
weren't
gets more.
reporting on
Let's hope it gets more. Yeah.
over 50,000 people dying and nobody was reporting on it. So I really appreciate you, giving me a voice here. I really appreciate you for that.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it too. All right,
And
folks.
thank you for your service, dude. Absolutely. Thank you.
And thank you for
very much.
burning the Iranian flag in your elementary school.
Yeah,
Brass
badass.
balls.
That's a cool story. That's
I
very,
appreciate
very cool.
it. Thank you.